The May Horizon. Book 6, Keller Cases. Intro. Written by R.B. Martin. And narrated by Adam Mystery. May doesn't arrive like the others. It doesn't bury you like December. Doesn't drag you like January. Doesn't test you like February. Doesn't press you like March. And it doesn't come for you like April. May waits. And in that waiting, it teaches you something worse than pain. It teaches you what you don't control. It had been a week since Riverbend and Port Calusa broke open. A week since the docks went loud, since the containers stopped moving, since the system went quiet. Too quiet. Olivia Lopez got her promotion, earned it clean, federal backing, state leverage. She moved up exactly the way someone like her should. Me, I got paid. Enough to finish the repairs on the office and buy the unit next door. 3C. Artemis didn't argue when I handed him the keys. He'd been in this just as deep as I was, and now he had a door with his name on it. The routine settled fast. Too fast. Wake up, notes, briefings, FBI check-ins, cross-referencing shipments tied to Running Harpoon LLC, watching what was left of Hawthorne Holding Group, waiting for something to move, waiting for something to break. That morning felt like all the others, and nothing like them at all. Something sat wrong, not loud, not obvious, just enough to stay with you. The Skylark turned over clean, smoother than I ever got her before. I let it idle a second longer than I needed to. Artemis didn't say anything. Pre-coffee silence. Two men who didn't need to fill space to understand it. We pulled into visitor parking at the FBI building, badges around our necks, eyes forward, no wasted movement. Inside, the air felt colder than it should have. Not temperature, pressure. The conference room was already set. Ajax stood off to the side, arms folded, watching the door like he always did. Cindy was at the table, files laid out in clean stacks, organized, deliberate. And three people I hadn't seen before. They didn't look like bureau, didn't look like anything local. They looked like they didn't belong to any room they walked into, which meant they belonged everywhere. Ajax gave a short nod as we stepped in. Keller. Artemis. Good. Let's get this moving. He didn't introduce them. He didn't need to. The woman at the center of the table did that herself. Special Activities Division, she said, sliding a folder across the table without standing. Central Intelligence Agency, Agent Nadia Kessler. Mid-30s, sharp posture, dark hair pulled tight, eyes that didn't scan. They locked. To her right, a man leaned back slightly in his chair, arms relaxed, but ready. Daniel Rourke, Field Operations. Ex-military. Easy to read if you knew what to look for, hard if you didn't. The third didn't sit. He stood near the wall, hands behind his back, watching everything without turning his head. Elias Vorn. No title. Didn't need one. Artemis took the seat beside me. I stayed standing a second longer, then sat. Cindy pushed the primary file forward. Everything you turned over from Port Calusa, container tracking, shell entities, financial routing. Nadia didn't open it. She already knew what was inside. You disrupted a logistics spine, she said, looking directly at me. Not the network. I didn't respond. Rourke leaned forward slightly. Running Harpoon LLC wasn't regional. It was a node. Artemis spoke before I did. We figured that. Elias Vorn stepped closer to the table, just enough to shift the room. The continuation didn't happen here, he said, voice low, measured. Nadia slid a second folder across, thinner, cleaner, more dangerous. South Africa. Cape Town Port Authority routes. Inland movement through private security corridors. Same structuring patterns you flagged here. We need continuity. I looked at the folder but didn't open it. Ajax stepped in. They requested you, both of you. That landed differently. On what authority? I asked. Nadia didn't blink. Contractual extension, federal coordination, CIA oversight. You stay on payroll. Artemis glanced at me, didn't say anything, didn't have to. I opened the folder. Photos, routes, names that weren't names, patterns that didn't stop. It wasn't over. It never was. I closed the file and looked back up at her. When do we leave? Chapter 1. Case file. Cape Town, South Africa. 005-00. 1-0026. The air in Cape Town carried something different the second we stepped off the plane. Not heat, not humidity. Control. Ports always had it. Movement disguised as routine, routine disguised as order. Containers stacked in perfect lines, ships coming and going on schedule, everything looking exactly the way it was supposed to. That was the problem. Everything here looked right. Artemis was already ahead of it. He always was. By the time we cleared customs, he had a vehicle staged, 2 burner lines active, and 3 potential sites flagged for what he called temporary infrastructure. What it really meant was a command center that didn't exist on paper and couldn't be found unless you already knew where to look. "You're going to like this one," he said, not looking up from his phone as we moved through the terminal. "I don't need to like it," I said. "I need it to work." It does both. That was Artemis, always building 2 steps ahead of the question. The ride out of the airport was quiet. Different kind of quiet than back home. Not absence, presence. The kind that watched you without turning its head. The roads were clean, the movement steady, and the skyline sat low against the mountain like it had nothing to prove. We didn't go near the port. Not yet. Artemis took us inland, through a stretch of industrial blocks that looked half abandoned and half forgotten. The kind of place that didn't attract attention because it had already been written off. He pulled into a narrow lot beside a concrete structure that used to be something else before it became nothing. "This is us," he said. Inside, it was already alive. Monitors mounted, hard lines run, signal boosters in place. A full visual grid mapped across 3 walls, pulling from traffic cams, port authority feeds, and scraped satellite overlays. It wasn't finished, but it didn't need to be. It was operational. "Local piggyback," Artemis said. "We're not in their system. We're around it." I walked the space once, slow. Entry points, sight lines, weak spots. There weren't many. "You've been busy." "You've been predictable," he said. I planned for it. That checked out. The door behind us opened before either of us turned. "Tell me this isn't another one of your off-book operations." Cindy O'Donnell didn't wait for an invitation. She stepped inside like she already owned the room, eyes scanning, processing, locking everything into place the way she always did. No lab coat, no FBI badge clipped to her belt. Just her. "You took your time," Artemis said. "I had paperwork," she replied. "Temporary leave. Signed, filed, and not entirely approved." I looked at her. "You walked out on the bureau." "I stepped away," she corrected. "There's a difference. Not to them. Not my problem right now." That was new. Cindy moved past us and straight to the monitors, already reading the data Artemis had pulled. "You're pulling port feeds through municipal relays," she said. "Latency's low, but your blind spots are going to be inland transitions." "I accounted for that," Artemis said. "You accounted for most of it," she replied. "Not all." She turned back to me. "You didn't think you were doing this without me, did you?" I didn't answer right away. Didn't need to. "No," I said. "I figured you'd show up." She gave a slight nod, like that was the only correct answer. We didn't hit the port that day. We watched it. 3 hours of nothing. Ships moved on schedule. Containers cycled through standard routing. Security rotations stayed consistent. No deviations, no delays, no pressure points. Too clean. Artemis flagged it first. "I'm not seeing variance," he said. "Define," I replied. "No lag in processing, no backlog buildup, no misroutes." Cindy stepped closer to the central screen. "That's not normal," she said. "Even efficient systems bleed somewhere." I was already looking at the container logs. "They're not bleeding," I said. "They're filtering." Artemis glanced at me. "Meaning?" "Meaning we're not seeing everything." Cindy pulled a secondary dataset onto the screen. External shipping manifests, independent registry pulls, not tied to Port Authority. She cross-referenced them against Artemis's feed, then stopped. "That's not right." I stepped in beside her. "Show me." She highlighted 3 entries. "Registered inbound," she said. "Time-stamped. Cleared through maritime tracking." Artemis ran a quick pull. Nothing came back on the port side. "No record of arrival," he said. "No offload," Cindy added. "No reroute," I finished. We all looked at the same spot on the screen. Empty. Where something should have been. "That's our first break," Artemis said. I shook my head. "No," I said. "That's not a break." Cindy looked at me. "Then what is it?" I leaned back slightly, eyes still on the missing entries. "That's control." We didn't say anything after that. Didn't need to, because whatever we were looking at wasn't just moving through the system. It was deciding what the system showed. And we had just stepped into it. Cape Town didn't give you what you needed. You took it. That part didn't change no matter where you were. We started with what we couldn't bring through customs. Artemis had already mapped 3 potential acquisition points. 2 were dead ends before we even stepped out of the vehicle. Too visible, too clean. The 3rd sat off a service road just outside an industrial corridor, tucked between a shipping repair yard and a warehouse that didn't advertise what it held. That was the one. The sign out front didn't match the business inside. It never did. The door was reinforced steel, paint worn from years of use, not neglect. Someone maintained it. That mattered more than whatever name was printed on the glass. Inside, it smelled like oil and dust and control. A man stood behind the counter, mid-40s, lean, posture balanced like he expected trouble but didn't invite it. Local. Not street. Not military. Something in between. "You're not from here," he said. Not a question. "No," I replied. He nodded once, like that confirmed everything he needed. "What are you looking for?" "Reliability," I said. Compact. Clean. Nothing loud unless it needs to be. His eyes shifted slightly, measuring Artemis, measuring the silence between us. "You're not tourists," he said. "No." Another nod. He stepped back and unlocked a case without turning his back fully to us. Smart. "Stock's limited if you want legal," he said. "Less limited if you don't." "We don't," Artemis said. That ended that. He laid them out one at a time. 2 compact .4s, clean frames, maintained, not refurbished. A 3rd, heavier, deliberate, a PEX-4 Storm full frame in .40 caliber. Different feel in the hand, more control through the slide, steadier on follow-through. I picked them up one by one. Weight check. Balance. Slide tension. Reset. No conversation while I did it. Didn't need it. "These move?" I asked. "They don't jam," he replied. Good answer. We added what mattered. Ammunition that matched the load, no mixed batches. Tactical gloves, grip fit without bulk. Low-profile holsters that wouldn't print. Basic kit, cleaning, concealment, movement. Nothing extra. Extra got you noticed. "You're heading near the port," he said. It wasn't a guess. Everyone who walks in like you does. I looked at him. And what happens to them? They come back, he said, then paused. Or they don't. We paid in cash. No names, no receipts, no acknowledgement beyond the exchange. At the door, he spoke once more. Watch the private contractors. They don't all work for who you think they do. I didn't turn back. Noted. Back at the command center, Artemis integrated what we brought in like it had always been part of the system. Cindy didn't comment on the gear. She didn't need to. She was already 3 layers deep into the anomaly. I expanded the data set, she said, pulling up the screen. External registries, insurance logs, satellite timing overlays. Tell me something new, I said. I can't, she replied. That got my attention. She highlighted the same 3 missing containers from earlier, then added 4 more. All confirmed inbound, she said. All vanish at the same point in the chain. Artemis leaned in. Transfer window? Doesn't exist. Then where do they go? Cindy didn't answer right away, because she didn't like it. I looked at the routing timelines. They're not disappearing, I said. Artemis glanced at me. Then what? They're being removed from visibility. Cindy nodded once. Selective omission. Not a glitch, Artemis added. No, I said. A system. We moved on the port just before dusk. Not inside. Close enough to feel it. Cape Town's port compressed instead of sprawling. Efficient lanes. Controlled choke points. Security layered without looking like it was. We stayed outside primary access, watched movement patterns, logged rotations, and waited. That's when he found us. He didn't approach like security, didn't posture, didn't challenge. He stepped into our line of sight like he'd already been there the whole time. Wrong side of the fence to be sightseeing. Local, late 30s. Build said trained. Eyes said experienced. His jacket carried a patch that didn't belong to official port authority. Private. Depends what you're looking at, I said. He gave a slight smile, not friendly, not hostile, measured. Name's Peter Naidu, contract security. That meant nothing and everything. You're not here for cargo, he continued. You're here for what isn't showing up on the cargo. Artemis shifted slightly beside me. Cindy stayed quiet. That puts you in a bad position, Peter said. Why? I asked. Because if you can see it, he replied, it can see you. That landed. Who's it? Artemis asked. Peter shook his head. That's the problem. No one owns it. No one admits it. But things move through this port that never hit a system, never hit a ledger, never hit a camera, unless they want to. Cindy spoke. You've seen it. Peter looked at her, then back at me. I've seen enough to stay out of it. That made him one of 2 things, useful or compromised. We're not staying out of it, I said. I figured, he replied. He stepped back slightly. Then you need to understand something. The moment you start tracking what isn't there, you stop being the only ones watching. Artemis's phone buzzed. Not a call. A system alert. He checked it once, then again, slower. What is it? I asked. He turned the screen toward me. Our command center feed was active, live, and on one of the monitors was a camera angle we didn't install, pointed directly at our setup. No movement, no intrusion logged, no breach detected. Just a clean feed watching us. Cindy's voice dropped. That's not possible. I didn't take my eyes off the screen. Yeah, I said. It is. We weren't tracking the system anymore. The system had just acknowledged us. We didn't leave the feed running. Artemis killed it the second we got back inside. Not a shutdown, not a panic move, a controlled isolation. He severed external inputs first, then internal routing, Then power to the affected stack, clean and deliberate. No one spoke while he did it, because whatever had just looked at us had done it without permission. "Talk to me," I said. Artemis didn't turn. "It wasn't a breach." Cindy stepped closer. "That's not possible." "It is," he said. "Because nothing came in." That sat wrong. "If nothing came in, then how did it get there?" I asked. Artemis finally looked at me. "It didn't get in. It was already inside the pathway." Cindy crossed her arms, thinking through it. "Piggyback insertion." "No," Artemis said. "Cleaner than that." "Then what?" He paused. "Override visibility." That was worse. I walked the room again, checking entry points, hard lines, hardware stack. Nothing out of place, nothing moved, no sign anyone had been here except us, which meant they weren't touching the system. They were controlling what the system showed. Cindy nodded. "Selective projection." "Like the containers," Artemis added. "Ghost roots, ghost eyes." "We shut everything down," Cindy said. "Rebuild clean." "No," I replied. Both of them looked at me. "We shut down. We disappear," I said. "And right now, I want them thinking we're still blind." Artemis understood first. "You want to leave the door open." "I want them to believe it never closed." Cindy exhaled slowly. "That's a risk." "So is everything else we've touched. We brought the system back up, not the same. Segmented, layered, with false pathways built in. Artemis created a mirror environment, one that looked identical from the outside, but fed controlled data back into itself. "If they're watching," he said, "they're watching what I want them to see." "Good," I said. "Now we test them." Peter didn't make us look for him. He was already there when we returned to the edge of the port. Same position, same posture, like he never left. That told me everything I needed to know. "You came back," he said. "You expected us to," I replied. "I expected you to be smart enough not to." Artemis stepped forward slightly. "We need access." Peter shook his head before he finished. "No." "That wasn't a request," Artemis said. "It should have been." I stepped in before it turned into something else. "We're not here to push your operation. We're here to understand what's moving through it." Peter studied me for a second longer than necessary. "You don't understand it. You survive around it." "Then help us do that." That landed. He looked past me briefly, not scanning, checking, then back. "You get one window," he said. "Short, controlled. You don't deviate from what I say, and you don't improvise." "We don't improvise," Artemis said. Peter gave him a look that said he didn't believe that. "Tonight, shift rotation overlap, 12 minutes. After that, you're on your own." Back at the command center, Artemis built the intercept. Not physical, not yet. Digital alignment first. "Container ID?" Cindy asked. Artemis pulled up the anomaly set. "We pick one that doesn't exist." "Then how do we track it?" she asked. "We don't," I said. "We predict it." We mapped timing, shipping lanes, inbound registry logs that never matched port intake, patterns inside the absence. "There," Cindy said, pointing to a narrow window. 42 minutes post-dock alignment. Same gap across 3 separate entries. Artemis nodded. "That's our ghost window." "Then we hit it," I said. Night settled over the port without changing it. That was the first thing I noticed. Most places shifted after dark. This one didn't. Peter met us at the access point. No uniforms, no badges, just clearance. "Stay close," he said. "You get separated. You don't get found." We moved through controlled corridors, past containers stacked higher than they should have been, through lanes that didn't show on any map Artemis had pulled. "Your feeds don't see this," Peter said quietly. I know, Artemis replied. We reached the position 2 minutes before the window. Cindy checked her watch. Artemis checked the system. I watched the movement. Nothing changed. That's it? Cindy said under her breath. No, I said. Wait. 30 seconds passed. Still nothing. Then a shift, not visible, felt. A container that wasn't there was suddenly there. No crane movement, no truck, no log entry, just presence. Artemis's voice dropped. I've got something. Cindy moved in. Where? Not on the system, on the edge of it. Ghost routing. Live. Can we tag it? She asked. Artemis hesitated. Do it, I said. He pushed the signal. Short range, low footprint, just enough to mark. For a second, nothing happened. Then, everything did. The lights shifted, not off. Wrong. Peter turned immediately. We're done. Now. Too late. Footsteps approached, not rushing, coordinated. Security? Cindy asked. Peter didn't answer. He already knew. They're not Port Authority, he said. That was the problem. Artemis killed the tag signal. Did it take? I asked. A beat. Yes. Then move. We pulled back through the corridor fast, controlled, not running, not stopping. The kind of retreat that doesn't draw attention until it's too late. Behind us, movement closed, not chasing, containing. We cleared the access point just before the window collapsed. Peter didn't follow us out. He stopped at the threshold. This is where I get off, he said. You knew, I replied. I suspected. Now I know. That makes you what? Cindy asked. He looked back toward the port, then at me. Still alive. Back in the vehicle, Artemis checked the system. The tag held, barely flickering at the edge of visibility. That's our line in, he said. I looked back once toward the port. They let us mark it. Cindy frowned. Why would they do that? They didn't stop us, I said, because they wanted to see what we'd do next. Neither of them argued, because we all understood the same thing now. We weren't ahead of it. We were inside it. The tag held, not clean and not stable, but enough. Artemis had it pinned to a narrow signal band that flickered like it didn't want to exist. It wasn't broadcasting in any conventional way. It pulsed, disappeared, then came back just long enough to confirm it hadn't gone anywhere. That's not tracking, Cindy said, watching the screen. It is if you know what you're looking at, Artemis replied. I kept my eyes on the signal. It's moving. Barely, he said. Or it wants us to think it is. That sat wrong, but not enough to stop. Get us a direction. Artemis adjusted the filter and tightened the range. The signal sharpened just enough to draw a line. Inland, he said. Not through standard port exit routes. Of course not. We didn't go back to the port. We went around it. Cape Town changed the further you moved away from the water. The order thinned out, and structure gave way to fragmentation. Industrial blocks, private yards, unregistered corridors that didn't show up on anything official. That was where systems like this lived, not in the open and not in the dark, but in between. Artemis drove while Cindy worked the signal. I watched the road and everything that didn't belong on it. You seeing this? Cindy asked. No, I replied. That's the problem. She rotated the display toward me. The signal wasn't just moving, it was skipping. Explain it, I said. It's not continuous, she said. It's relocating. Artemis frowned. That's not how physical tracking works. It's not physical, I said. That was the answer. We slowed as the signal stabilized again, settling over a warehouse district that wasn't abandoned and wasn't active, just maintained. There, Artemis said. nodding toward a stretch of low buildings set back from the main road. No signage, no visible activity. Too quiet for something that size. Feels like a dead zone, Cindy said. It's not dead, I replied. It's controlled. We parked 2 blocks out with no direct line of sight and no unnecessary exposure. Artemis killed the engine, but left the system running on auxiliary. The signal stopped moving. Tell me it's not gone, Cindy said. It's not gone, Artemis replied. It's settled. I watched the building. No trucks, no personnel, no visible entry points in use. Same pattern, I said. Presence without process. We moved on foot without rushing or hesitating, just closing distance. The closer we got, the more wrong it felt. Not because of what we saw, but because of what we didn't. There were no cameras, no guards, no perimeter security. That's not possible, Cindy said quietly. It is, I replied, because they don't need it. We reached the outer edge of the structure. Concrete walls, reinforced, no markings, no identifiers. A facility that didn't want to exist. Artemis checked the signal again. It's here, inside. Entry? Cindy asked. Not yet. Something shifted. Not inside the building, but around us. I turned slightly, just enough to catch movement across the street. A vehicle sat parked with the engine off, occupied. We're not alone, I said. Artemis didn't look. How many? One confirmed. Maybe more. Same as the port? Cindy asked. No, I said. Different. That was worse. The signal pulsed again, stronger this time, like it wanted to be found. Artemis stiffened. That's not normal. Nothing about this is normal, Cindy said. No, he replied. That's not what I mean. He turned the screen toward us. The signal wasn't just stabilizing, it was expanding. Pull back, I said. Too late. Every device in Artemis's system flickered, not off, but wrong, the same way the lights had shifted at the port. Kill it, Cindy said. I'm trying, Artemis replied. The screen cleared, then reloaded. Not our system. A single feed came up, clean and direct. The warehouse from a high angle watching us. No delay, no distortion. Live. Shut it down, I said. It's not ours, Artemis replied. That confirmed it. We weren't pulling data anymore. We were receiving it. The feed adjusted slightly, not mechanically but intentionally, centering on us. Cindy stepped closer. They're not hiding anymore. No, I said. They're talking. The screen flickered once, and text appeared with no header, no signature, no origin. You are off route. Artemis went still. That's not a system alert. I know, I said. The text changed. Return to observation. They're directing us, Cindy said. No, I replied. They're correcting us. The vehicle across the street started, engine low and controlled. They're moving, Cindy said. Stay where you are, Artemis added. I didn't move and didn't take my eyes off the screen. The message shifted again. Do not interfere. Then the feed cut, clean, and immediate. Artemis's system came back online with our interface and our data, like nothing had happened. Except it had. I looked back at the warehouse. Still quiet, still empty, still wrong. They don't want us here, Cindy said. No, I replied. They don't care if we're here. Artemis glanced at me. Then what was that? I watched the road. The vehicle that had been across the street was gone without sound or trail. That was a warning, I said. Cindy shook her head slightly. Warnings don't usually come that clean. No, I said. They come messy. I looked back at the building. This wasn't messy. That was the problem. They're not reacting to us, I said. They're managing us. Silence settled between us because we all understood what that meant. We weren't chasing the system. We were moving inside something that already knew where we were going, and now it was starting to tell us where not to go. We pulled off 2 blocks out and let the engine idle, while Artemis stripped the last of the live connections down to a sterile baseline. He didn't power anything off this time. He reduced it, layered it, and pushed a mirror stack back into place, so whatever had touched us would still have something to look at. Cindy logged the timestamps, every anomaly, every flicker that didn't belong. I watched the street and waited for the second move that never came. "We don't go back in tonight," I said. "No argument," Cindy replied. Artemis nodded. "I'll keep the tag alive on a low cycle. If it moves, we'll know." "Good," I said. We reset, and we do it with them in the room. The CIA didn't use the port. They used a consulate annex 3 streets inland, behind a facade that looked like administrative overflow and functioned like anything but. Security was present without announcing itself. Layers you didn't see until you tried to cross them. Nadia Kessler met us at the interior door. Same posture, same eyes. Daniel Rourke stood off to the side, relaxed in the way that meant he wasn't. Elias Vorn wasn't visible. That meant he was there. "You look like you learned something," Kessler said. "We learned we're being managed," I replied. "That's one interpretation," she said. "It's the right one." She didn't argue. She motioned us inside. The room was set for debrief. Clean table, controlled lighting. No devices except the ones they allowed. Artemis didn't reach for the ports. He knew better. Cindy set her notes down without opening them. Kessler watched all of it. "Start at the point of deviation," she said. "We tagged a non-existent container," I said. "Signal behaved non-physically. Relocation pulses, not transit. Inland stabilization at an unmarked facility. No perimeter security. No visible intake." Rourke leaned forward slightly. "And the contact?" "We received a live feed we didn't source," Artemis said. "Direct, zero latency, external control. Text overlay with directives." Kessler's eyes held on him. Exact language. "You are off route. Return to observation. Do not interfere." Cindy slid a timestamp across the table. Synchronized with a localized environmental shift at the site. Same signature as the port incident. Kessler nodded once, as if confirming a line she already had. "You pushed the system. It pushed back." "It didn't push," I said. "It corrected." Rourke's expression didn't change. "Then you've confirmed Rule 1. "Say it," I said. "Access is allowed," he replied. "Interference is contained." Kessler took over. "You are not operating against a standard network. You are operating inside a managed environment with selective visibility. It will permit observation. It will restrict disruption. When you cross that line, it will apply pressure." "Define pressure," Cindy said. "Variable," Kessler replied. "Digital first, then physical. Always proportional to your deviation." Artemis glanced at me. "That tracks." I looked at Kessler. "And authority?" She didn't hesitate. "You operate under agency coordination. I set constraints. Rourke sets field parameters. Vorn handles anything that doesn't exist on paper." There it was. "Objectives?" I asked. "Continuity of insight," she said. "Not collapse of the network." "That's a problem," I replied. "It's a reality," she said. "You don't dismantle something embedded at this depth by kicking the door. You map it until it shows you where it actually lives." "And if it decides to shut the map down?" Cindy asked. Kessler held her gaze. "Then you'll be the reason it did, and we'll lose the only visibility we have." That landed the way it was meant to. Rourke slid a thin folder across. "Local layer," he said. "Private security contractors, labor channels, known coercion patterns. If you want traction, You don't start at the center. You start at the pressure points that keep it fed. I didn't open the folder. We already met one. Kessler's eyes sharpened. Name. Peter Naidu, I said. Rourke gave a small nod. Dock worker clearance, contractor adjacency. Clean on paper. Not clean in practice, I said. Nothing here is, Kessler replied. If he's in your orbit, he's either leverage or liability. Treat him as both. That's the plan, I said. She stood. You have a window to recalibrate. Use it. And Keller, stay inside observation until we tell you otherwise. I held her eyes. We don't stay where we're told. I know, she said. That's why you're here. Don't make me regret it. We stepped out into daylight that didn't feel any different than the room we left. Cape Town kept its control no matter where you stood. Artemis checked the mirror stack on his phone. They're still watching the decoy, he said. No deviation. Good, I said. Let them. Cindy walked beside me, quiet for a block, then said, if pressure scales with deviation, we just set a baseline. Yeah, I said. Now we see how fast it climbs. We turned the corner toward the main road and saw it before we heard it. A small crowd forming the way crowds do when they don't want to be involved, but can't look away. 2 men had someone down against the pavement, one holding him, the other working his pockets, with the kind of efficiency that comes from repetition. Peter, Cindy said. He saw us at the same time. Not relief. Recognition. The man on his right shifted his stance when he noticed the change in Peter's eyes. He followed the look and found us. Wrong choice. I closed the distance before it turned into anything loud. The first one came off Peter with a shove that turned into a strike. I caught his wrist, redirected, and put him into the pavement hard enough to take the fight out of him without making a scene. The second reached under his jacket and stopped when Artemis stepped into his line with a calm that didn't ask permission. Don't, Artemis said. The word was enough. Cindy pulled Peter up and moved him back a step. He was shaken, not broken. The second man recalculated. Street math. Distance, witnesses, outcomes. Not worth it, he said to his partner. That's right, I replied. They backed off without running, professionals of a different kind. As they moved, one of them looked at Peter, then at me. This doesn't clear, he said. It compounds. That was the message. They left. The crowd dissolved the way it always does when the center of it stops feeding them. Peter steadied himself and met my eyes. You shouldn't have done that. They were taking from you, I said. They were collecting, he replied. There's a difference here. For them, I said. Not for you. He shook his head once, like he was already calculating the cost. You just moved my timeline. Good, I said. Then we control the next move. You don't control anything here, he said. Maybe not, I replied. But I can change who thinks they do. Cindy watched him closely. Who are they? He hesitated, then said, Local crew. They don't own anything. They touch what they're told to touch. By who? She asked. Peter didn't answer that. He didn't need to. Artemis's phone buzzed. He looked at it once and didn't speak. What is it? I asked. He turned the screen. Our mirror environment. Stable. Then a single line of text appeared across the decoy feed, clean and centered. Deviation noted. It held for a second, then vanished. No source. No trace. Cindy exhaled slowly. That was fast. Pressure scales, I said. Peter looked between us. You brought this with you? No, I replied. We found it. He didn't believe me. Didn't matter. I looked back down the street where the 2 men had gone. They'll come back, I said. They won't come alone, Peter replied. Good, I said. Neither will we. Artemis slipped the phone back into his pocket. Tag's still holding, he said. Warehouse hasn't moved. Then we don't hit it, I said. Not yet. Cindy frowned. We wait? We shape it, I replied. We push where it's weak and watch where it pushes back. Peter gave a short, humorless breath. You think you found a weak spot? I think we made one, I said. The street settled again, like it had decided we were part of it now. That was fine. We'd stay just long enough to make it uncomfortable. Behind us, inside a system that preferred clean lines and controlled outcomes, something had already adjusted. And it was starting to write the next move. The CIA safehouse didn't look like much from the outside. That was the point. A narrow structure tucked between two aging commercial buildings, sun-faded signage, security disguised as neglect. Inside, it was the opposite. Controlled. Quiet. Deliberate. Every angle covered. Every entry point accounted for. We were seated within 10 minutes of arrival. The 3 CIA agents from our initial briefing were already inside. The lead, Harlan Voss, stood near a digital board, sleeves rolled, posture relaxed in a way that wasn't. He was the one calling this operation, whether anyone said it out loud or not. To his right sat Daniel Cade, eyes always moving, always measuring. The third, Elena Rios, remained behind a terminal station, headset resting around her neck, fingers hovering like she never fully disconnected from the feed. Cindy stood near Artemis, reviewing pulled data streams. She didn't look like someone on leave. She looked like she'd just shifted jurisdictions. Voss didn't waste time. You pushed inland faster than expected. We followed the signal, I said. You followed a breadcrumb trail we didn't authorize. There it was. Chain of command, established early. Artemis stepped in before it escalated. The movement pattern wasn't random. We confirmed routing logic tied to a ghost container network. If we waited, we lost it. Cade leaned forward slightly. Or you walked exactly where they wanted you. That's the working theory, I said, which means we're already inside their operational envelope, whether we like it or not. Silence held for a second. Not disagreement. Calibration. Rios broke it. They saw you. No doubt about that now. Signal interference wasn't environmental. It was reactive. Meaning? Cindy asked. They pinged your equipment. Not to shut it down. To mark it. That sat heavier than anything else so far. Voss nodded once. From this point forward, you don't move without coordination. This isn't Riverbend. This isn't Florida. You are operating inside a system that's been in place for years, possibly decades. You push too hard, you disappear. Understood? I held his gaze. Understood. But we don't slow down. A pause, then a faint shift in his posture. Good, he said, because neither do they. The briefing moved fast after that. Artemis synced his offsite command center with CIA infrastructure, clean integration, limited access permissions, just enough to share intel without handing over full control. Cindy worked parallel channels, aligning FBI protocols with CIA handling procedures, smoothing friction before it could become a problem. That was the difference here. We weren't running solo anymore. Every move had oversight. Every decision had consequence beyond just us. We wrapped just before noon. Outside, Cape Town felt like a different world compared to the controlled environment we'd just left. The air carried heat and motion, street vendors lining the blocks, traffic moving in unpredictable patterns, voices layered over one another in a rhythm that didn't stop. We split into pairs. Artemis and Cindy stayed back to stabilize the command link. I took point with Cade, running a short perimeter walk to get a feel for the surrounding blocks. Still think you're ahead of it? Cade asked as we crossed an intersection. No, I said. I think we're exactly where they want us. Good answer. We turned down a narrower street, less crowded, the noise tapering off just enough to hear individual movement. That's when it happened. A sharp shout, struggle, fast, unpolished violence. Two men had a third pinned against a wall near an alley cut. One holding him by the collar, the other going through his pockets with efficient impatience. Local, not random. I closed distance before Cade could say anything. Timing mattered more than permission. "Hey," I said, voice flat. Both men turned. One of them stepped forward immediately, posture aggressive, testing. Wrong move. He came in fast, sloppy. I stepped inside the swing, redirected the arm, drove him into the wall with enough force to take the fight out of him. The second hesitated just long enough for Cade to level the field. No weapon drawn, just presence and positioning that made the outcome obvious. They backed off, quick. No pride left in it. "Not worth it," one muttered, already retreating. They disappeared down the alley. The man they'd pinned stayed where he was for a second, catching his breath. Mid-40s, worn clothes, hands rough with labor. Dock worker, if I had to guess. "You all right?" I asked. He nodded, but it wasn't convincing. His eyes moved past us, scanning the street like he expected them to come back with more. "They always come back," he said quietly. That told me everything I needed. "What do they want?" I asked. "Money. Always money." He swallowed. "If I don't pay, they go to my family." Cade glanced at me. This wasn't our operation. Not officially. I ignored that. I nodded once. "All right, Peter. You're not paying them anymore." He looked at me like he didn't understand the statement. "They don't stop," he said. "Not here." "Then we'll give them a reason to." Cade exhaled slightly, not quite approval, not quite objection. "You're stepping outside scope." "Scope adjusted," I said, because this wasn't just a street problem. This was pattern, control, pressure points at the lowest level feeding something bigger. Peter was part of it whether he knew it or not. And now, so were we. We got him moving, walked him 2 blocks out, made sure he wasn't being followed. Artemis patched in over comms halfway through, already tracking the area, already pulling local overlays. "Got eyes on your position," he said. "Those two aren't isolated. Small gang cluster. Known extortion pattern tied to port labor routes." "There it is," I said. Cindy came in next. "You're not wrong to intervene, but keep it tight. If this overlaps with the system, we need to know how." "It overlaps," I said. "Everything here overlaps." We dropped Peter near a transit stop. He hesitated before stepping away. "They'll come tonight," he said. "Good," I answered. He didn't ask what that meant. He didn't need to, because I already knew what came next. We weren't just chasing containers anymore. We were starting to touch the edges of how this place really worked. And something out there had already started adjusting to us. By the time we got back to the safe house, Artemis already had the street mapped. Not just the block where we found Peter, but the surrounding grid. Ingress points, choke lanes, vendor positions, blind spots between cameras. He layered it with port labor schedules, shift rotations, and flagged movement patterns that didn't align with standard dock activity. Cindy stood beside him, arms folded, eyes scanning the overlays as they updated in real time. "They're not just extorting random workers," she said. "They're targeting consistency. Same routes, same time windows, same pressure points." "Control nodes," Artemis added. "Low-level enforcement that feeds into something larger. They don't need to own the port. They just need to influence who moves through it." I set my jacket on the back of the chair and leaned over the table. "Peter's not the target. He's the leverage." Artemis zoomed in on the alley where we intercepted the mugging. 2 markers appeared, then 4 more within a 2-block radius. "This cluster operates in rotation. small cells, no fixed leader. That's intentional. Harder to dismantle, Cindy said. Harder to trace, Artemis corrected. This isn't just a street gang. It's a distributed enforcement layer, which meant it could plug into something bigger without exposing the core. Voss entered a moment later, Cade behind him, Rios still on comms. He took one look at the board and understood the direction we were moving. This is not your priority, Voss said. It is now, I answered. You want to understand the system, you start where it touches the ground. Voss didn't respond immediately. He stepped closer, studying the overlays. You think this connects to the container routing? I think nothing here operates in isolation, I said. You've got ghost containers moving inland without documentation. You've got local enforcement pressuring dock workers on consistent schedules. You've got signal interference marking our equipment without shutting it down. That's coordination. Cade nodded slightly. He's not wrong. Voss exhaled once, measured. Fine. But we do this controlled. No freelance corrections. You engage, you report. You don't escalate beyond containment unless authorized. Understood, I said, even if we both knew that line would get tested. Rios turned from her station. We've got something else. Traffic anomaly just lit up again. Artemis shifted instantly, pulling the feed onto the main display. A container ID flickered into view, one we had flagged earlier in the ghost routing pattern. Location? I asked. Transient, Artemis said. It's bouncing. Same signature as before, appearing in system logs without physical confirmation. But this time, he paused, narrowing the data. This time it lingered. Where? Inland corridor, 20 kilometers from port. Agricultural zone. Voss looked at Cade. That's new. It's escalation, I said. They're not just moving goods. They're testing how far they can project control. Cindy leaned in. Or they're baiting us. That too, I said. Voss straightened. We split focus. Cade, you stay with Keller. Controlled observation on the Peter situation. No unnecessary exposure. Rios, maintain signal tracking. Artemis, you coordinate between both fronts. Cindy, you run point on intel validation. He looked at me last. You get one move on this. Make it count. That was as close to authorization as we were going to get. We moved just before dusk. Cape Town shifted tone as the light dropped. The energy didn't disappear, but it changed. More contained, more watchful. The kind of environment where movement stood out if you didn't belong. We staged 2 blocks off Peter's route. Artemis fed us live updates through a secure channel, marking movement in real time. Cindy monitored secondary feeds, flagging anything that deviated from baseline. Cade stood to my left, quiet, focused. You planning to scare them off or break them? Depends how they show up, I said. They'll test first. Good, I replied. So will we. Peter appeared on schedule. He moved like someone trying not to be noticed, shoulders slightly hunched, pace steady but cautious. His eyes scanned without turning his head, a habit built from repetition. They're already in position, Artemis said over comms. 2 on your north approach, 1 trailing from the east. 4th is holding back. Overwatch? Cindy asked. Maybe, Artemis said. Or control. I watched the pattern form as Peter crossed into the same stretch where we found him earlier. The timing was precise. Not rushed, not random. They're confident, Cade said. They're used to no resistance, I answered. The first one stepped in exactly where expected, cutting Peter's path. The second closed from behind, tightening the space. The third hung back just far enough to watch. The 4th stayed out of sight. I moved before they could complete the circle. The one in front barely registered me before I redirected him offline, forcing him into the wall with controlled force. Not enough to cripple, but enough to disrupt the sequence. Cade stepped through the second, neutralizing him with a clean, efficient takedown that ended the movement before it escalated. The third hesitated. That was the break. "Walk," I said, voice low, direct. He didn't. So I stepped forward once. That was enough. He backed off, dragging the others with him, recalculating in real time. No retaliation. No escalation. Not yet. "They're pulling," Artemis said. But the fourth just moved. "Where?" I asked. "Behind you?" I turned just as the last one revealed himself at the edge of the alley. He didn't approach, didn't posture. Just stood there, watching. Different behavior. "Not a street-level enforcer," Cindy said over comms. "That's oversight." The man met my eyes from across the distance. No expression, no urgency, just confirmation. Then he stepped back into shadow and disappeared. Cade exhaled slowly. "That wasn't random." "No," I said. "That was a message." Peter stood frozen, trying to process what had just happened. "They're gone," he said, like he didn't believe it. "For now," I corrected. "They'll adjust." "So will we," Cade added. Artemis came back over comms. "You're not going to like this." "Say it," I said. "That container signature, it just moved again." "Where?" A beat. "Closer." The word settled heavier than it should have, because we hadn't moved toward it, which meant it had moved toward us. I looked down the alley where the fourth man had disappeared, then back to the street, to Peter, to the pattern we had just disrupted. "We're not just in their system," I said. Cade nodded once. "We're on their board." And somewhere inside that board, something had just made its next move. 2 days passed without incident. That was the problem. No movement on Peter. No visible retaliation from the street cluster. No immediate response to the disruption we created. On paper, it looked like a win. In practice, it felt like pressure building behind a closed door. Artemis didn't trust it. Neither did Cindy. Every feed we had access to showed the same thing. Normal patterns, normal routes, normal noise. Too clean. Too consistent. "They don't absorb hits like that without answering," Cindy said, reviewing the latest overlays. "They're not street reactive," Artemis added. "They're system reactive. They adjust, then they respond." "Which means they're choosing when," I said. "And how," Cade finished. We kept Peter on a low-profile routine. No escorts, no visible protection. That was the agreement. Keep him in pattern. Don't signal interference. Let the system show its hand. It was the right call tactically. It didn't sit right operationally. I checked in twice that day. Short conversations. Nothing out of place. He sounded tired, but steady. Said things felt quiet. Said maybe they had backed off. I didn't believe it. By nightfall, the city had settled into that same layered rhythm. Movement without pause. Noise without direction. Artemis was still tracking the ghost container, its signal drifting in and out like something testing the boundaries of its own existence. Cindy was cross-referencing local incident reports, looking for anything that tied back to the enforcement pattern. Nothing surfaced. That's when my phone rang. It wasn't Peter. It was a number I didn't recognize. I answered anyway. All I heard at first was breathing. Then a voice, low and strained. "They came back!" The line cut. I was already moving before the call dropped. Cade didn't ask questions. He was with me before I reached the door. Artemis patched into comms instantly, pulling location data from the call, triangulating faster than I could ask. "Got it," he said. "Residential block. 3 minutes out if traffic holds." "It won't," I said. We made it in under 2. The street was already wrong. Front door open. Lights on. No movement outside. That told me everything I needed to know. We entered without knocking. The inside was chaos. Furniture overturned. Glass shattered. The kind of damage that comes from controlled violence, not panic. This wasn't a robbery. This was a message delivered inside someone's home. Peter was on the floor near the living area, trying to get up, one hand braced against the wall. Blood along his cheek, swelling already setting in. "Where are they?" I asked. "Gone," he said, voice unsteady. "They didn't stay." "Of course they didn't." "Family?" Cade asked. Peter's expression shifted, something breaking through the shock. "Back room." We moved fast. The bedroom door was half off its hinge. Inside, the damage was worse. One of them, his son, maybe early 20s, was on the ground, barely conscious. Blood pooled beneath his shoulder, soaking into the floor, breathing shallow and uneven. Not fatal yet, but close enough to matter. Cindy's voice came through comms immediately. "Status." "Injured," I said. "Critical." "EMS is en route," she answered. 3 minutes. It felt longer. Cade dropped to a knee, applying pressure, stabilizing as best he could without full kit. I scanned the room, reading the damage, the entry points, the exit path. They came in fast, controlled, no hesitation, no wasted movement. This wasn't the same crew from the street. "They escalated," Cade said quietly. "No," I answered. "They refined." Peter stood in the doorway, staring at his son, then at me. "You said they would stop," he said. I didn't answer, because I hadn't said that. But I understood what he meant. "You said you would handle it," he continued, voice tightening. "You said I didn't have to pay them anymore." "I said we'd give them a reason to stop," I replied. "They didn't stop," he said. "They came to my house." The words landed heavier than anything else in the room. This was the cost of interference, not theoretical, not strategic, personal. "They were looking for you," Peter said, stepping closer now. "They asked about you, about all of you." That changed the equation. "They're linking us," Cade said under his breath. "They already have," I answered. Sirens cut through the distance, closing fast. Peter shook his head, something between anger and disbelief. "You brought this here." "No," I said. "It was already here." "That doesn't matter," he shot back. "Now it's worse." I didn't argue, because from where he stood, he wasn't wrong. EMS arrived within seconds, pushing past us, taking control of the room with practiced urgency. Oxygen, pressure, stabilization, controlled movement replacing chaos. We stepped back, giving them space. Peter didn't move. He stayed where he was, watching everything, then looking back at me like he was trying to decide something. Trust wasn't gone, but it wasn't stable anymore. "They didn't just hurt him," Artemis said over comms, voice tighter than usual. "They sent a signal." "Yeah," I said. "I see it." Cindy came in next. "We can't stay reactive, not after this." "No," I agreed, because this wasn't a warning anymore. This was enforcement. System level. Deliberate. And it told us exactly what we needed to know. We weren't disrupting the system. We were starting to threaten it. I looked at Peter one last time before stepping out of the house. "I'm going to end this," I said. He didn't answer. Didn't nod, didn't agree. But he didn't stop me either. Which was enough, because the line had already been crossed. And next step wasn't going to be about containment. It was going to be about removal. We didn't wait for authorization. We coordinated. That was the difference. The safe house turned operational inside 20 minutes. Artemis had already mapped the full footprint of the gang cluster. Every known associate, every recurring location, every pattern of movement tied to port labor enforcement. What started as a loose network 2 days ago now had structure. Rotational crews, staging points, a fallback location that didn't appear on any formal registry. "That's your center," Artemis said, highlighting a warehouse 2 kilometers inland from the port corridor. "Short-term hold site. They cycle personnel through here before pushing them back out." "Armed?" Cade asked. "Confirmed," Cindy answered. "Low-grade weapons, but consistent. Pistols, shotguns. Enough to control, not enough to draw attention. After what they did to Peter's family, they won't fold," I said. "They'll hold ground." Voss stood at the edge of the board, watching the layout resolve into something actionable. "We do this clean," he said. "Local coordination is already in motion. You hit fast, you control the space, you hand it off." "Not a sweep," I said. "A break." Voss met my eyes. "You get one shot at that. Make sure it holds." Cade checked his sidearm, then looked at me. "You ready to step past containment?" "We already did," I answered. Artemis patched in final overlays, entry points, internal layout approximations, heat signatures pulled from recent drone passes. 4 confirmed inside, possibly more. "Back entrance is your best entry," he said. "Front is too exposed. You push through the rear, you control the main room before they can scatter." Cindy added, "Local units are 2 minutes out from your go signal. They'll seal the perimeter. You're not alone on this." "Good," I said. "Let's keep it that way." We moved just after midnight. The streets had thinned, but not emptied. Enough noise to cover approach, not enough to hide mistakes. Cade and I took point, cutting through a side lane that brought us behind the structure. The building itself looked like everything else in that district, worn, underlit, forgettable. Except it wasn't. Artemis's voice came through low and steady. "You've got 3 inside the main floor. 1 moving near the rear corridor. No external movement." "Copy," I said. We stacked at the back entrance. Metal door, weak hinge, no alarm system visible. Cade gave a single nod. I breached. The door gave under force, collapsing inward just enough to clear entry. We moved through fast, controlled, weapons up, angles tight. The first one inside reacted late. He reached for his weapon. Too late. "Drop it," I said. He didn't. The shot cracked through the room before he could bring it up. Controlled. Center mass. He dropped hard, weapon skidding across the floor. The rest reacted instantly. Shouting. Movement. Chaos trying to organize itself into resistance. Second contact came from the left, firing blind toward the entry. Rounds hit the wall behind us, wide and untrained. Cade moved offline, returned fire with precision, forcing the shooter down before he could adjust. "2 down," Cade said. "Movement right," Artemis called. I shifted, catching the third as he broke from the back corridor, trying to push through the main room. He fired once, wild, then again, closer this time. I stepped inside his line, redirected the angle, drove him down hard. The weapon came loose in the impact. "Stay down," I said. He didn't argue. The fourth didn't engage. He ran. "Back exit," Artemis said. "He's moving!" Cade broke pursuit before I could call it, clearing the corridor with controlled speed. I followed half a step behind, keeping the angles covered. The runner hit the exit and pushed through, straight into perimeter. Local units had already locked it down. "On the ground," a voice shouted outside. A brief struggle, then compliance. "Subject secured," came over comms. We slowed the pace immediately. Weapons lowered, but not relaxed. The room still held tension, but the fight was over. Fast, decisive. No extended engagement. That was the goal. Cade checked the first downed shooter. "Alive," he said. "Barely." "EMS will take him," I answered. Cindy's voice cut in. "Perimeter is sealed. Units are moving in. You're clear to transition." Voss followed seconds later. Good work. Hold position until transfer is complete. I stepped back into the main room, scanning it again with a different lens. No longer a threat environment. Now, it was structure. Proof. This wasn't random enforcement. This was organized control. Local officers entered in sequence, weapons drawn but disciplined, clearing the space we had already broken. Cuffs went on fast. No resistance left to give. One by one, the pieces were taken off the board. Cade exhaled slowly. That's your cluster. For now, I said. Because systems like this didn't collapse from one hit. They adapted. Artemis came back over comms. You're going to want to hear this. Go, I said. Financial traces from this group, small but consistent, tie back to a shell distribution account. Same routing signature we saw on the container network. That tightened everything. Running Harpoon, I asked. Not directly, he said, but close enough to matter. Cindy added, which means this wasn't just street-level enforcement. It was connected. Everything is, I said. Voss stepped inside, taking in the room, the detainees, the structure we had just dismantled. This holds, he said. For now. It'll force movement, I replied. That's the idea. We started to clear out. Local took over. Evidence teams moved in. The room shifted from threat to process in under a minute. I slowed near the exit. Something caught my eye. Not on the floor. Not in the debris. Set. A card resting on a steel crate just off the main path out. Clean surface in a dirty room. Positioned where it wouldn't be missed, but only on the way out. Not on entry. I picked it up. Cold. Metal. Black matte finish. Gold lettering cut sharp enough to hold light without reflecting it. Nkosi. I didn't say anything at first. Cade noticed the pause. What is it? I turned the card once between my fingers. Not part of the scene. He stepped closer. Looked. Didn't recognize it. Cindy came in over comms. You good? No, I said. We missed something. Artemis picked up on the shift. Define missed. I kept my eyes on the card. This wasn't here when we came in. You sure? Cade asked. Yes. Because if it had been, it wouldn't be sitting clean. It would have been kicked, scattered, lost in the fight. This wasn't part of the breach. This was after. Cindy's voice tightened slightly. You're saying it was placed during the operation? Or immediately after, I said. By who? Voss asked, stepping back toward us. I handed him the card. He read it once. No reaction. Then again. Slight shift. You know the name, he said. Yes. How? Florida, I said. End of the pier. That was enough. Cade's posture changed. You had contact. I had a voice, I said. Didn't ask. Directed. Voss looked at the card again, slower this time. And now it shows up inside an active scene. After we cleared entry, I said. After we controlled the room. Which meant one thing. Access. Cindy didn't say it right away. When she did, it was controlled. That window doesn't exist unless someone created it. Artemis came in quieter. Local units didn't enter until after you secured interior, which meant whoever placed it didn't come through the front. CIA? Cade asked. No one answered that. They didn't need to. I took the card back. The weight felt different now. Not a message left behind. A message delivered. He's not reacting, I said. He's tracking. Or testing, Voss added. No, I said. He already tested us in Florida. I slipped the card into my coat. This is confirmation. Of what? No one asked, because we all understood it. We hadn't just disrupted a street gang. We had stepped into something that could move inside our operations without resistance. and somewhere between the breach and the exit, someone made sure we knew it. We stepped out into the street, lights flashing, noise returning, everything looking like control from the outside. It wasn't, because now we had something we didn't have before. Not a lead, not evidence, presence, and a name that wasn't new anymore. Nkosi. The room felt different after a win. Quieter. Not because the noise was gone, but because everyone expected something to follow it. Debrief tables, evidence logs, transfer confirmations. It all moved the way it was supposed to. Clean. Ordered. Controlled. Which meant it was incomplete. Voss stood at the head of the table, reviewing the intake report from local authorities. 4 detained, 2 hospitalized, weapons recovered, financial ties confirmed through shell routing. He set the folder down without emphasis. Operational success. Cade didn't react. Cindy didn't either. Artemis kept his attention on the secondary screen, tracking something he hadn't said out loud yet. I watched the room instead. Success always had a shape. This one didn't settle right. Charges, I asked. Filed, Voss replied. Local jurisdiction with federal advisory. They'll hold. They won't, I said. That pulled Cade's eyes toward me. Voss didn't move. Explain. I leaned back slightly, not breaking eye contact. That cluster wasn't built to hold under pressure. It was built to absorb it. Cindy nodded once. Distributed enforcement. No centralized leadership. No traceable ownership. Which means, Voss pressed. Which means you didn't remove anything, I said. You triggered a response. Silence settled across the table, but not the kind that resisted the idea, the kind that recognized it. Rios broke in from her station. You're going to want to see this. Artemis turned his screen toward the room. Tracking signal is still active. That's not new, Cade said. It didn't stop, Artemis replied. That changed it. Define didn't stop, I said. The ghost container never paused during the raid, he said. No disruption. No delay. No reroute. Cindy stepped in closer. That's not possible. We hit a confirmed node. Artemis shook his head. We hit something. Not what we thought. Voss moved toward the screen. Where is it now? Artemis zoomed the signal in. It flickered, then stabilized just long enough to resolve a location. Closer than before, not moving away from the port. Moving around us. That's not routing, Cade said. No, I replied. That's positioning. Before anyone could respond, Rios's system flagged a new alert. Local update, she said. Detained subjects, status change. Voss turned. What kind of change? Rios hesitated. That was enough to tell me it wasn't procedural. They're being released. The room shifted. On what grounds? Voss asked. No formal charges filed, she said. Identification inconsistencies. Records don't match intake. Chain of custody flagged. That's not possible, Cindy said. It is, I replied, because they were never meant to stay in custody. Cade's posture tightened. You're telling me we hit a warehouse, engaged armed suspects, handed them over, and now they don't exist. That's exactly what I'm telling you, I said. Voss didn't speak right away. When he did, it was quieter. Who cleared it? Rios shook her head. No clearance logged. Then who authorized it? No authorization recorded. Which meant one thing. It wasn't authorized. It was decided. Artemis adjusted the signal again, forcing the system to resolve the ghost container's movement. For a second, it duplicated. 2 points existing in the same space before collapsing back into one. Cindy saw it. That's not tracking. It's not supposed to be, Artemis said. Then what are we looking at? Cade asked. I kept my eyes on the screen. We're looking at something that doesn't need to follow rules because it controls them." Voss turned back toward me. "You're suggesting the raid was anticipated." "No," I said. "I'm saying it was accounted for." Cindy stepped back from the table, thinking it through. "They let us hit the enforcement layer." "Because it doesn't matter," Artemis added. "Or worse," I said, "because it does exactly what they need it to." Cade glanced between us. "Which is what?" "Pressure redistribution," I replied. "You remove one node, the system shifts load to another. Cleaner. Faster. Harder to see." Rios's screen flickered once, just enough to catch attention. Then a single line of text appeared. No header, no origin, no system signature. "Observation maintained." No one spoke. Artemis didn't touch the system. Cindy didn't move. The text held for 2 seconds, then disappeared. Clean, like it had never been there. Voss looked at me. "That your system?" "No," I said. "Then whose?" I didn't answer, because we already knew. Cade exhaled slowly. "They're not pushing us out." "No," I said. "They're keeping us in." Cindy nodded, eyes still on the screen. "Inside a controlled layer." "Inside a managed response," Artemis added. Voss closed the folder on the table, slower this time. "Then this wasn't a win." "No," I said. "It was confirmation." The room settled again, but this time it held. Because now we weren't looking at a disrupted system. We were looking at one that had already adapted. Before we finished acting, I stepped away from the table, just enough to clear the space, and checked my phone out of habit more than intent. No calls, no messages, except one. No number attached. No timestamp, just text. "You are still en route." I read it once, then locked the screen. Cade noticed the shift. "What?" I looked back at the room, at the screens, at the people who were just now starting to understand what we were inside. "They didn't lose anything," I said. Voss held my gaze. "Then what did we do?" I slipped the phone back into my coat. "We moved where they expected us to." That sat with him, with all of them, because that meant something worse than failure. It meant alignment. I looked at the signal one last time as it flickered, stabilized, then shifted again, never stopping, never settling, never leaving. "We didn't hit the system," I said. "We proved we're inside it." The words didn't change anything on the screens. Artemis still had the feed open, Cindy still tracking the last stable signal before it broke. Rios cycling through logs that didn't show what we already knew was there. The room kept moving, but slower now. Not confusion. Adjustment. And somewhere beyond the screens, beyond the port, beyond the routes we could see, something had already adjusted for what we were going to do next. I didn't stay. "Where?" I asked Artemis. He didn't look up. "Dockside Industrial, secondary yard, same place Peter clocks in." That was enough. Cindy caught it. "We're not cleared to move. We're not waiting." "That's not the same thing," she said. "No," I replied. "It's earlier." I was already moving for the door. Artemis shut the system down in sequence this time. Not rushed, just fast enough to matter. Cindy followed without another word. Outside, the air felt tighter than it had 10 minutes ago. Same temperature, different weight. We didn't talk on the drive. Artemis had the location up on a portable screen. Signal gone, but position fixed from the last good read. No movement updates, no corrections, just a place. "That's a problem," Cindy said. "It's a decision," I answered. We cut off the main road and moved into the industrial strip. Low buildings, wide gaps between them. Lights that stayed on whether anyone was working or not. The kind of place that didn't draw attention because nothing there looked worth it. Peter's yard sat 2 blocks in. Chain link perimeter. Sliding gate half open. No guard. No reason for one. I killed the engine before we rolled up to it. "Something's off," Cindy said. It already was. We went in on foot. No alarms. No raised voices. Just the hum of equipment somewhere deeper in the yard and the scrape of something dragged across concrete. Work sounds. Normal if you didn't know what to listen for. We rounded the first stack of pallets and saw them. 3 men. Not moving fast. Not trying to. Peter was on the ground between them, one knee down, one hand braced, trying to stay upright without giving them the satisfaction of seeing him fall. They weren't rushing him. That told me everything. One of them stepped in, drove a short strike into his side. Not wild, not angry. Measured. The kind of hit meant to remind, not end. Peter didn't cry out. He took it, shifted, stayed where he was. "Enough," I said. All 3 turned. No surprise, no scramble, just acknowledgement. The one closest to Peter straightened and looked at me like he'd been expecting the timing. "You're Keller," he said. Not a question. I didn't answer. Cindy moved to my right. Artemis stayed a step back, eyes moving across the yard, tracking exits, not the men. "This doesn't go any further," I said. The man closest to me gave a small nod, like he'd heard that before. "It already did," he replied. No accent I could place clean, local enough, controlled enough. Behind him, one of the others reached down and grabbed Peter by the collar, pulling him just high enough to look at me. Peter's eyes found mine. No panic. No relief, just understanding arriving faster than it should have. "This isn't your lane," the man holding him said, still looking at me. "You bring it here. It stays here." "Let him go," Cindy said. They didn't look at her. "This is done," I said. The man in front of me held my gaze a second longer, then gave another small nod. "That's right," he said. "It is." He stepped back. The one holding Peter released him without a push. No extra force, just let him drop the last few inches to the ground on his own. Message delivered. Nothing else. They turned and walked. Not fast, not slow. No attempt to hide where they were going. Just 3 men leaving a job they were already finished with. I watched them go until they were out of sight behind the next structure. Cindy moved first, dropping beside Peter, hands already checking him. "Stay with me," she said. "Look at me." "I'm here," he said, voice tight but steady. Artemis stepped in from the side, scanning the yard one more time before focusing back on Peter. "No secondary presence," he said quietly. "They didn't need one," I replied. Cindy pressed along Peter's ribs. He flinched, but didn't pull away. "Nothing punctured," she said. "Bruising. Possible fracture." "I can stand," Peter said. "Not yet," she answered. He didn't argue. I stepped closer. He looked up at me again. Longer this time. "You're late," he said. Not accusing, just accurate. "We got here," I replied. "That's not the same." "No," I said. "It isn't." Cindy shifted him carefully, getting his weight under control. Artemis moved in to help stabilize, both of them working like they'd done it 100 times. Peter didn't take his eyes off me. "They didn't ask me anything," he said. "They didn't want anything." I knew. "They just needed me to see you," he continued, "and you to see me." The words sat between us, heavier than anything that had happened in the last 10 minutes. "This doesn't end here," I said. He gave a small shake of his head. "For you," he said. "Maybe." He let that settle, then added, "For me. It should have." Cindy looked up at me briefly, then back down, staying on task. "We need to move him," she said. Artemis nodded. "Vehicle's close. They got him to his feet together. He held barely, but enough to move. I stepped back to give them space. Peter didn't thank me, didn't ask what came next. As they moved him toward the gate, he stopped once, just long enough to look back. Not at the yard, at me. "You don't fix things," he said. His voice wasn't raised. It didn't need to be. "You move them." Then he turned and kept walking. I stood there a second longer than I should have. The yard was quiet again. No sign they'd ever been there except for what they left behind, and what they didn't take. I looked down at the concrete where Peter had been. Clean, controlled, exactly how they wanted it. Behind me, the car door closed. Engine turned. They were ready to move. I took one last look at the space, then turned and walked out. Because whatever we thought we were pushing forward had already moved past us. The paperwork started before the blood dried. By the time we cleared the warehouse and handed bodies over to local enforcement, the tone had already shifted. Not outwardly. Not in a way anyone on the street would notice. But inside the process, where things either lock or slip, something wasn't holding. We didn't transport with them. That wasn't our lane here. Voss made that clear before the first vehicle pulled away. "Local jurisdiction handles custody," he said. "We observe." Observe. That word had weight here. It meant distance. It meant limitation. It meant whatever happened next wasn't ours to control. I watched the transport vehicles roll out anyway. 2 vans, no markings, standard containment. Nothing about it looked compromised. That was the problem. It looked clean. Cade stood beside me, tracking the same thing without saying it. "You don't like it?" "No," I said. "I don't trust it." He didn't argue, just nodded once. Inside, the warehouse still carried heat from the breach. Cordite, dust, movement that had already passed through. I walked the interior one more time before we cleared completely. Not for evidence, for pattern. Most of it was noise, broken structure, displaced inventory. Signs of men who thought they controlled the space, and were wrong. Then I saw it. Near the far wall, just off where one of the shooters went down, a casing sat where it didn't match the rest. Brass. Smaller profile, not consistent with what we recovered off the gang. I crouched, didn't touch it, just looked. Cade came up beside me. "Something off?" "Yeah," I said. "This doesn't belong to them." He followed my line of sight. "You sure?" "Yes." Could have been missed in the sweep. "No," I said. "We didn't miss this." I stood, eyes still on the casing for half a second longer. Different weapon, different hand. No announcement. No escalation. Just a detail that didn't fit yet. We cleared the site after that. Back at the safe house, the energy had shifted. Not relief, not fatigue, just recalibration. Rios was already pulling custody logs. Cindy leaned in over her shoulder. Artemis was mapping movement timelines. Voss stayed still, watching the room. "How many did we hand off?" Cindy asked. 7 confirmed, Rios said. 2 critical, 5 stable. "Charges?" Rios hesitated, then leaned back slightly. "That's not right." I stepped in. "What?" "They're not processing under organized crime," she said. "They're flagged under local disturbance." "That's interference," Cindy said. Voss moved closer, read the screen, then looked at Rios. "Confirm custody location." She pulled it up, then stopped. "They're not at intake." Cade shifted. "Where are they?" "Transit log shows diversion," she said. 32 minutes after departure. To where? She didn't have it. Voss exhaled once. "That's not diversion. That's redirect." "Same outcome," I said. "They're gone." "They were taken," he corrected. Cindy crossed her arms. inside their own system. "This isn't your system," Voss said. I looked at him. "Then whose is it?" He didn't answer. Rios kept digging. "No break-in signal, no spoofing." "Then the record is clean," Cade said. "That's the problem," she replied. I nodded once. They were supposed to move. Silence settled. We didn't shut anything down. We cleared space. I looked back toward where the vans had gone. "They didn't react to the raid," I said. "They accounted for it." No one argued. And somewhere beyond the screens, beyond the port, beyond the routes we could see, something had already adjusted for what we were going to do next. We didn't move right away. That was the first mistake. We stayed inside the room, inside the system, letting it define the next step while it was already ahead of us. Rios kept the feeds live. Artemis adjusted overlays. Cindy worked jurisdiction angles that weren't coming back clean. Voss held position, watching without committing. Cade stayed near the door, not blocking it, not leaving. Everyone was doing their job. It wasn't enough. "They're not reappearing," Rios said. "No custody logs, no transfers, no intake." "Not gone," I said. "Reassigned." Voss didn't look at me. "That's not actionable." "It tells us what we're inside," I replied. Artemis spoke without turning. Container moved. That cut through everything. "When?" I asked. 4 minutes ago. No outbound trigger. No port activity." Rios pulled the signal tight. "Short-range movement. Not following logistics routes." "Then it's not logistics," Cindy said. "No," I said. "It's placement." Cade pushed off the wall. "Where?" Rios hesitated, then resolved it. "Residential grid." The room tightened. "Define," Voss said. "Mixed-use block, close to commercial strip." I didn't need the rest. "Say it." She looked at me. "Peter's district. Not his house. Close enough to matter." "They're staging," I said. "They're signaling," Cindy replied. "Same outcome." Voss stepped forward. "You don't move on that." "We don't wait," I said. "You're not cleared." "I'm not asking." Cade stepped in. "If you move now, you're outside structure." "That's already happened." Voss's voice stayed even. "If you walk out, you don't have agency cover." I turned toward the door. "Then don't follow me." I moved. No rush, no noise, just distance closing. Cape Town didn't change for it. Traffic moved. People crossed streets. Light stayed the same. Halfway down the block, I felt it. Absence. The kind that tells you something already happened. I picked up the pace, turned the corner, saw the crowd. Not large, just enough to mark something wrong. I pushed through. Peter was on the ground, alive, bleeding through his shoulder. Clean entry, controlled angle. Not chaotic, not rushed, measured. I dropped beside him, checking the wound, through and through. Painful, not fatal. Same pattern. My jaw set. His eyes found mine. There was no relief in them. "You made it," he said. Not gratitude. Timing. "Who did this?" I asked. He didn't answer right away. Just held my gaze like he was deciding whether I was worth saying it to. Then he spoke. "A woman." That locked it. "Describe her." "Didn't need to," he said. "She made sure I knew who it was for." I didn't move. "What did she say?" Peter exhaled once, pain cutting through it. Then, "Tell Marty he's still behind," he said. "And next time I shoot him, he won't survive." The noise around us faded. Not literally. Functionally. Same caliber. Same control. Same distance. This wasn't the system. This was her. I stood slowly scanning the block. No shooter. No exit vehicle. No trace. She was already gone. Cade came in from my right, taking in the scene. Cindy followed a second later. "How bad?" Cade asked. "Not fatal," I said. Cindy looked at Peter, then at me. She heard enough to know what this was. "Who?" she asked. I didn't hesitate. "Laura." That shifted everything. Not escalation, not pressure. Contact. Pieter shifted slightly, pain cutting deeper now. His eyes stayed on me. "This follows you," he said. There it was. The break. No anger, no accusation, just distance. I didn't answer, because he wasn't wrong. Sirens started in the distance, late enough to matter. I looked back across the street, then up toward the buildings that didn't show anything but still felt like they were watching. We hit the gang, we cleared the warehouse, we moved inside the system, and she stepped in. Not to stop it, not to slow it, to mark it. I looked at Cade, then Cindy, then back at the space where she'd been. "We're not chasing this anymore," I said. Neither of them responded. They understood. "This is already moving around us." By the time local response reached Peter, the block had already gone back to pretending it was ordinary. That was the part I hated most. Not the blood, not the timing, not even the message. The ease of it. A woman shoots a dock worker in the shoulder in broad daylight, leaves a line meant for me, and the street folds back over it like nothing happened. People lower their phones, storefronts reopen, traffic moves, a city absorbs violence faster than conscience ever could. Cindy stayed with Peter through the transfer. Cade handled perimeter questions, with the kind of calm that shut down bad ones before they started. I didn't do either. I stood half a step outside the scene and looked at the corners, the windows, the parked cars, the roof lines. Anywhere she could have sat. Anywhere she could have watched the round land and the message settle before she walked away clean. Artemis came in late, not physically late, timing late. He had the system open on a portable screen, feeds stacked, routes cross-layered, trying to force shape into something that had already made the decision not to leave one. "Nothing on traffic pulls," he said. "No clean visual. She either moved through the blind spots or had them before she arrived." "Both," I said. He didn't argue. Peter was loaded into the ambulance without saying anything else to me. He didn't look at me again either. That part carried more weight than the wound. I watched the doors close on him and felt the line pull tighter. Not just around him, around everything. Voss arrived after the scene was already over. No sirens, no rush. Just the same dark vehicle, the same measured exit, the same face carrying authority like it could correct timing if it wanted to. He took one look at the ambulance, then at me, then at the crowd clearing itself out. "You moved without clearance," he said. "Yeah. And now you've got a civilian shot in the street." "No," I said. "I've got Laura Vance in theater." That was the first time he lost half a step. Not visibly. Not enough for anyone on the block to notice. Enough for me. Cade turned slightly toward him. "The victim confirmed message delivery." Voss's eyes moved to him. "What message?" I answered before Peter had to live through hearing it repeated by somebody else. "Tell Marty he's still behind, and next time I shoot him, he won't survive." Cindy had just stepped away from the ambulance when I said it. She stopped where she was, eyes on me, not because she was surprised, but because hearing it aloud locked the theory into something harder. "Laura Vance," she said quietly. "Yes." Voss looked between us. "You're certain?" I turned toward him. "She's used a .38 before. She shot me with one. Elliot died with one. Smith died with one. William Mackland maybe died with one. Antoine wasn't shot, but he was still hers. She escalates when she wants the message to carry farther than the body." "That's not evidence," he said. "No," I replied. "That's pattern." Cade said nothing. He didn't need to. He had heard the line. He knew what mattered and what didn't. Voss studied the now empty curb where the ambulance had been, then looked back at me. Then she wanted this attributed. Yes. Why? Because she wasn't hiding from me anymore. Because she wasn't just in the same city. She was inside the board. She wanted me to know she got here first, I said. We didn't stay on the block much longer. There was nothing left there for us except repetition. Statements, delayed perimeter checks, local uniforms asking the kind of questions meant to make a report sound complete. None of it mattered. Back at the safe house, the room felt smaller. Not physically, operationally. Everyone moved like the walls had closed in a little, and none of us wanted to be the first to admit it. Rios had already rebuilt the local movement picture by the time we came back in. She had 4 screens open, all feeding different layers into one another. Traffic, camera pulls, signal echo, financial route timestamps. She didn't greet us, just looked up long enough to register the answer already written across my face. It was her, she said. Yes. That was enough for her to shift her entire stack. No questions, no disbelief, just adaptation. Artemis set the portable rig down and pushed forward a frame capture series from the last 12 minutes before the shot. Empty intersections, normal vehicle flow. One service van that never resolved cleanly because the plate blurred at the edge of the camera field. A pedestrian corridor feed that skipped 3 seconds in the middle and came back without enough loss to trigger the system. A rooftop reflection that showed movement without identity. She had route prep, he said. This wasn't opportunistic. No, I replied. It was timing. Cindy leaned against the table, arms folded. Then she knew Peter's work schedule. She knew mine too, I said. That sat with all of them differently. Laura wasn't just executing inside Meridian's structure. She was moving around mine. Voss took the head position at the table, like that alone might restore sequence to the room. We need to separate assumptions from facts. Fine, I said. Fact. The gang arrests didn't hold. Fact. The warehouse card was planted after breach. Fact. The system moved a container without any visible logistics trigger. Fact. Peter got shot by someone who wanted a message delivered to me personally. Fact. Laura Vance has now entered the field. You can prove the last one? He asked. I looked at him for a second longer than I should have. No, I said, but I can prove I'll be right before you can prove I'm wrong. Cindy shifted her gaze away from me and toward Voss. He's not speculating. He's pattern matching. And pattern is not admissible, Voss replied. This isn't a courtroom, she said. No, he said. It's worse. Cade finally spoke. Meridian. That pulled the room toward him, not because he raised his voice, because he almost never used a word before he had decided it belonged there. Artemis looked up first. Say that again. Cade didn't move. If Vance is in theater and the custody chain is compromised and local enforcement redirected gang assets that fast, then this isn't just an embedded network. It's an operating structure with a visible face somewhere above the shell lines. Rios was already moving before he finished. Meridian Group, she said, fingers running across the keyboard. Parent corporate registrations tied to corridor consulting, shipping optimization, customs advisory, infrastructure support. Cindy looked at the screen as the name came up. That's real. Very, Rios said. Registered, audited, government adjacent in 3 regions, clean public books, dirty routing architecture underneath. There it is, Artemis said. Not surprise, recognition. I stepped closer to the display. The Meridian Group. The name sat there without trying to look important. That was how you knew it was. Not flashy, not aggressive, just legitimate enough to disappear into contracts, port work, customs review, transport compliance, and any other place people stopped asking questions because the paperwork looked expensive. Hawthorne bought into this, I said. He rented from it, Artemis corrected. That felt cleaner, more accurate. Voss stayed focused on the screen, but I could see the shift in him now. Not panic, not fear. Something worse for a man like him. Operational inconvenience. Do we have direct corporate ties to the Cape Town corridor? He asked. Reyes nodded. Indirect, Meridian subsidiaries, advisory arms, rotating shell handlers, private logistics, and security providers tied to facilitation contracts. Nothing criminal on the surface. Nothing chargeable. Cindy exhaled through her nose. So it's exactly what Keller said. They never own the crime. They own the movement around it. Rios brought up another document chain, then another. One company fed into a second. That second leased facility coverage to a third. That third had contracts with a private port services vendor that touched customs throughput without technically controlling customs throughput. It was clean enough to pass any first look, maybe any 10th. This is how they survive, Artemis said. No one part commits the act. Every part enables it. And who sits over the southern corridor? I asked. Rios paused, not because she didn't have something, because she knew it mattered. She brought up a flagged contact tree, sparse, incomplete. One internal name repeated across 3 regional routing anomalies. No headshot, no executive listing, no public filings, just a line. Maseko Nkosi, Southern Corridor Authority. No title below it. Didn't need one. Cindy read it first. That's him. That's the name, I said. Voss looked at me. You've had this before. In Florida, I said. He called me at the end of the case. And you didn't report it. I reported the result, I replied. Not the voice. That's not the same thing. No, I said. It isn't. Cade kept his eyes on the screen. Johannesburg anchor. Rios nodded. That's where the repetition clusters. Not where he sits, necessarily. Just where the routing authority stabilizes. You don't find him, I said. Cindy glanced at me. You get routed to him. That landed exactly the way it should have. Not because it was dramatic, because it was true. The room went quiet after that, but not empty. Everyone was still moving, still processing, still trying to decide whether the name made the shape clearer or just bigger. For me, it did both. Laura wasn't a separate problem. She was Meridian's execution layer, or adjacent enough to function like one. That meant she wasn't just following the system. She was using it, maybe leaning on it, maybe cutting across it when she wanted to send something personal through the structure without asking the structure for permission. That made her more dangerous than the company. Companies adapt. Laura chose. Cindy broke the silence first. Peter won't talk to us tomorrow. I looked at her. He may not even talk to me, she added, but he definitely won't talk to Keller. She wasn't wrong. You want me to go in alone, she said. No, I replied. She waited. I looked back at the Maseko line on the screen, then at the Meridian records underneath it, then at the place where Laura had inserted herself into the case, just enough to prove she could keep doing it. We don't go to Peter first, I said. Then where? Voss asked. Laura left a message, I said. Messages are timing. Timing has structure. Structure has roots. Artemis was already ahead of me. You want to reverse the shot? I want to reverse the day. That got everyone moving again. Rios split off camera ranges around Peter's work block and built a motion lattice backward from the shot time. Artemis layered vehicle anomalies over utility interruptions. blockade pulled local street closures and unreported work permits. Cindy started building a human picture instead of a digital one. Shift changes, work absences, routine gaps, anyone who cleared space without making it obvious they had. Voss stayed where he was, watching the room try to outthink something that had already outmoved it. I understood the look. He wasn't deciding whether this was real. He was deciding how much of it he could admit had happened under his authority. The answer didn't matter to me anymore, because Keller with cover and Keller without it had started to look like the same man in two different coats. An hour into the reconstruction, Artemis found the first real break. "Here," he said. We all turned. He had a frame locked from a block 3 streets off Peter's yard. Not clear enough for a face, not close enough for identity, but clear enough for posture, movement, intention. A woman stepping out of a service lane into the reflected glass of a delivery van. Coat cut close, head angled slightly down. One arm held tight to the body the way people do when they're carrying something without wanting it seen. She knew the blind spots, Cindy said. "Yes," I replied. Artemis advanced 2 more frames. Same shape, same direction. Gone by the 3rd. No hurry, no wasted motion. That was her. Not because I saw her face, because I didn't need to. "She wants me moving," I said. Voss looked over. "And that means what?" "It means this wasn't the play," I said. "It was the invitation." No one corrected me. No one could. Because the world had already started closing in behind the case, and for the first time since we landed in South Africa, I could see the walls. Not physical, operational, Meridian on one side, CIA structure on the other. Laura somewhere between them, stepping in and out of visibility whenever it suited her. Nkosi Maseko, sitting above the southern corridor, like a signature on a document no one was supposed to read. Peter bleeding because he stood too close to me. The gang gone because they were never ours to keep. The port still moving because the port was never the center. I looked at the screen one last time, then at the card still sitting sealed in the evidence pouch on the far side of the table. Nkosi, Meridian, Laura, different names, same direction. "We're not dealing with fragments anymore," I said. "We're dealing with a company." Artemis nodded once. "A legitimate one," he said. "No," I replied. "A protected one." That was worse, because protected things don't panic. They absorb. They wait. And when they finally decide to move, they make it look procedural. We started with the money, not because it was cleaner, because it was the only thing that didn't lie when you looked at it long enough. Rios rebuilt the ledger chains first. Not full accounting. No one gets full accounting on something like Meridian, but enough fragments to see how value moved without ever appearing to move. Artemis layered routing data over it, port entries, customs timing, inland transfers that didn't align with declared cargo. Cindy pulled human overlap, names that appeared in the margins of different documents without ever becoming the focus of any one of them. I stayed out of the way, not disengaged, just not touching the board yet, because the last move I made got Peter shot. "Start here," Rios said. She pushed a set of entities onto the main screen. 3 companies, different names, different registrations, different directors, same flow. "Meridian Cape Logistics," she said. "Consulting arm. Advises port authorities on throughput optimization." "Meaning," Cindy said. "Meaning they tell ports how to move things faster," Rios replied. Artemis tapped the second entity. "Corridor Solutions. Contracts inland transport efficiencies. Doesn't own trucks. Doesn't lease them either. Just advises who should be moving what, when." "And they get paid for advice," Cindy said. "They get paid for timing," Artemis corrected. The third entity came up. Meridian Infrastructure Advisory, Rios said. Customs compliance, paperwork, regulatory alignment. I looked at the three names sitting next to each other. Consulting, routing, compliance. Nothing illegal, everything necessary. They don't move anything, I said. No, Rios replied. They make sure everything moves the way it's supposed to. According to who? Cindy asked. That's the question, Artemis said. I stepped closer to the screen. 3 companies on paper. 1 function in practice. They don't need to own the shipment, I said. They don't need to store it. They don't even need to see it. They just need to control the points where it changes hands. Ports, Cindy said. Customs, Artemis added. Transport, Rios finished. And enforcement, I said. That part hung longer than the rest, because that was the part we just ran into. 7 gang members, processed, redirected, gone. Not hidden. Moved. Meridian doesn't move product, I said. It moves access. No one spoke for a second. Then Cindy nodded once. That's how you disappear something without breaking anything. That's how you make it look like nothing ever happened, Rios added. Artemis pulled up a timing map. Look at this. He overlaid 3 shipment paths across the last 48 hours. 1 declared. 1 rerouted. 1 never recorded. All 3 intersected at the same 2 points. Transfer windows, he said. Short duration, high volume, minimal oversight. Blind spots, Cindy said. No, I replied. Designed visibility. They looked at me. If it was a blind spot, I said, it wouldn't repeat. Rios adjusted the map. The pattern held. Not random, not accidental. Placed. Meridian builds the routes, she said, then hides inside them. Or in plain sight, Artemis added. Cade had been quiet through most of it, standing just off the table, watching the flow instead of the details. Where does Laura sit in this? He asked. That shifted the room, because up until that point, we were talking about structure. Now we were talking about intent. She's not in the paperwork, Cindy said. No, I replied. She's what happens when the paperwork isn't enough. Execution layer, Artemis said. Selective, I corrected. She doesn't handle everything, just the parts that need to be seen. Seen by who? Rios asked. I didn't answer right away, because I already knew. Me, I said. No one argued. They didn't need to. Cindy leaned back slightly, arms still crossed. Then she's not just working inside Meridian. No, I said. She's using it. Or being used by it, Voss said from the far side of the room. That was the first time he'd spoken in a while. I looked at him. That depends on who you think is in control, I said. That's exactly what we're trying to establish, he replied. No, I said. That's what you're trying to establish. He didn't respond to that. Didn't deny it either. Rios shifted the screen again, bringing up the Maseko reference. Sparse, deliberate, repeated just enough to confirm it wasn't noise. Maseko ties to corridor authority, she said. Not ownership, not executive control. Authority. Meaning he doesn't run Meridian, Cindy said. He controls how Meridian runs here, Artemis replied. Southern Corridor, Cade added. I looked at the name again. Nkosi Maseko, Johannesburg. A voice on a phone in Florida telling me I was looking in the wrong direction. You think this ends with 1 port? No, it didn't. It started there. Can we find him? Cindy asked. Rios shook her head. No direct trace, no fixed location, no digital footprint that holds long enough to map. Then how do we reach him? She said. Cade answered that one. You don't, he said. You get routed. That landed exactly where it needed to, because it matched everything we'd seen. The container, the gang, Peter, Laura. Nothing direct, everything positioned. Artemis pulled up the frame capture from earlier, the reflection shot of Laura stepping through the service lane. He froze it, not for clarity, for confirmation. "She's ahead of us," he said. "Yes," I replied. "And she wants you moving," Cindy added. "Yes." Voss stepped closer to the table. "Then we stop moving." That drew every eye in the room. "You don't engage a system like this by feeding it reaction," he said. "You slow down. You force it to show more." "That's not how this works," I replied. "That's exactly how it works," he said. "You're playing into her timing." "I'm already inside her timing," I said. "Slowing down doesn't change that. It changes your exposure." "No," I said. "It increases it." Silence settled again. Not disagreement. Conflict. Cade looked between us. "He's not wrong." Voss didn't take his eyes off me. "Neither am I." Cindy broke it. "Then we split the approach." That pulled the room back into motion. "How?" Voss asked. "You maintain structure," she said to him. "We maintain pressure." "That's not coordinated," he replied. "No," she said. "It's adaptive." I watched both of them for a second, then nodded once. "We don't chase Meridian," I said. They looked at me. "We map it," I continued. "We find the points where it needs to be consistent." "Transfer windows," Artemis said. "Custody chains," Rios added. "Human patterns," Cindy finished. "And Laura," Cade said. That brought it back, because no matter how clean the system looked on paper, she was the variable that made it move. "She's the only one we've seen step outside it," Cindy said. "No," I replied. "She steps through it." "That's a difference," Voss said. "It's the difference," I answered. Rios highlighted a new segment on the map. "Next window," she said. 12 hours. "Where?" I asked. She zoomed in. Industrial corridor. Inland, not port-facing. "Not declared," she added. "Of course not," Cindy said. I looked at the map, then at the reflection still frozen on Artemis's screen, then at the Maseko line sitting quiet under everything else. Meridian wasn't hiding. It was operating. Laura wasn't running. She was guiding. And somewhere above both of them, Nkosi Maseko was letting it happen exactly the way it needed to. "We don't go loud," I said. Cade nodded. "We don't go blind," Cindy added. Artemis adjusted the overlays. "We go early." Rios locked the timing. Voss didn't agree. Didn't stop us either. That was enough. Because for the first time since Peter hit the ground, we weren't reacting to what already happened. We were stepping into something before it did. Whether that mattered was still up to them. I found the cigarettes before I found the reason for them. They were sitting where nothing else had any business being, on the edge of a low concrete divider behind the service lane, half shadowed by a flickering utility light that couldn't decide if it wanted to stay on or give up entirely. The kind of place people pass through without looking twice. The kind of place things get left when they're meant to be found by the right person and ignored by everyone else. Red pack, soft edges, lucky strike. I stopped without announcing it. Didn't reach right away. Just stood there long enough to let the scene settle around it. No trash nearby. No footprints that didn't belong to the usual flow. No reason for it to be there except the one it was. Placed, not dropped. I bent slightly and picked it up between two fingers, turning it just enough to catch the light. The paper was clean. Not new, but not worn either. No sweat marks, no pocket creases. It hadn't been carried. It had been set. For me, that was the shift. Not loud, not dramatic, just a line crossing from something that moved around me into something that stepped into my path. I slid the pack into my inner pocket and felt the weight settle against the lining. Familiar, not the object, the act. The feeling was right. I hadn't touched a cigarette since March, didn't miss it, didn't think about it, just shut it off and kept moving. This wasn't that. This wasn't habit. This was placement. I reached into the other pocket, pulled a match from the small book I'd carried longer than I cared to admit, and drew a cigarette from the pack. The paper slid free without resistance, clean, deliberate, like it had been waiting. I placed it between my lips, struck the match, and watched the flame catch just long enough to matter before bringing it in. The first pull burned, not unexpected, not unwelcome. I let the smoke sit for a second before pushing it out slow, watching it move through the weak light and disappear into a space that didn't hold anything long enough to be remembered. Lucky strike, old brand, older message, unfiltered decisions, no apology, no explanation. She knows you'll take it. Cindy's voice came from behind me, controlled, not surprised. She didn't rush into the space, stayed just outside it, like she understood that stepping too close would change something she didn't want to disturb yet. I didn't turn. She knows I'll recognize it, I said. That's not the same thing. No, I replied. It isn't. Cade came in from the side, scanning the lane, the roof lines, the angles that mattered. He didn't look at the cigarette first. He looked at everything else. Any secondary markers? He asked. No. Camera gaps? Same as before. He nodded once. Artemis's voice came through the comm. You're off the mapped path. I know. What are you looking at? An invitation, Cindy said. A pause. Define, Artemis said. I flicked ash to the side, watching where it fell. Not a location, I said. A shift. That's not helpful, Voss cut in. It is if you're paying attention, I replied. Then explain it. I took another pull. She doesn't need to hide anymore, I said. She's placing things where I'll find them. That increases her exposure, Voss said. No, I replied. It increases mine. Silence. Cindy stepped closer now, eyes on the coat. Lucky strike, she said. Yeah. She smoked those? No. Then why this? I tapped the pack lightly through the fabric. She's not signaling herself, I said. She's signaling control. That held. Cade shifted slightly, still watching the perimeter. So this isn't about the cigarettes. No, I said. It's about the act. Which is? I let the smoke drift again. Engagement. The next 12 hours gave us nothing. Not quiet, not clean. Nothing. Rios ran the window 3 times. Artemis rebuilt the routing overlays from scratch. Cindy cross-checked personnel movement against every flagged corridor Meridian had touched in the last 48 hours. Cade rotated perimeter assignments twice, shifting angles, changing patterns, forcing variation where there should have been friction. There wasn't. No secondary markers, no misplaced objects, no signal echoes, no Laura. That was the problem, because up until now she hadn't needed to disappear. She'd been in front of us, just ahead. Close enough to feel like progress, far enough to stay out of reach. Now, nothing. I stood over the table, looking at the same map we'd been working since Peter went down. Industrial corridor, inland, 12-hour window. We were inside it, and there was no movement. Run it again, I said. Rios didn't argue, just reset the sequence and pushed it through. Same result. Still clean, she said. That's not possible, Cindy replied. No, I said. It is. They looked at me. She's not using the window, I continued. She's using us. Artemis leaned back slightly. Define. I tapped the map once. We came in early, I said. We adjusted to her timing. Yes, he replied. She adjusted again. That puts us behind, Cindy said. No, I replied. That puts us where she wants us. Cade stepped in closer. Which is where? I didn't answer right away, because the answer wasn't on the board. It was in what wasn't. No signal, I said. No placement. No correction. Meaning, Rios asked. She doesn't need to guide me anymore. Silence settled in. Not confusion. Recognition catching up again. Voss moved around the table, slow, deliberate. Then she's confident in your trajectory. Yes. That's not leverage, he said. That's containment. No, I replied. Containment requires boundaries. And this doesn't? This removes them. That landed harder than the rest, because without boundaries, you don't stop someone, you let them run. Cindy folded her arms. Then we're moving blind. No, I said. We're moving observed. That's worse, Artemis added. Yes? Rios shifted her screen, pulling up external traffic. City grid's normal, she said. No disruption. No reroutes. No enforcement spikes. Of course not, Cindy said. Meridian doesn't break flow. It becomes it, Artemis corrected. Cade looked at me. Then where do we push? I let the question sit, because the answer was already there. We just hadn't said it yet. We stopped following the system, I said. Voss didn't like that. That's not actionable. It is if you understand what the system needs. Which is? I turned slightly, looking past the map instead of at it. Consistency, I said. Timing, predictable behavior. That's every system, he replied. Yes, I said. Which means the only way to break it is to become inconsistent, Cindy finished. I nodded once. That creates noise, Rios said. That creates visibility, Artemis corrected. That creates risk, Voss added. That creates disruption, I said. Cade watched me for a second. And Laura? I met his eyes. She's expecting me to keep following, I said. To keep reacting to what she leaves behind. But she stopped leaving anything, Cindy said. Exactly. So now what? Artemis asked. I reached into my coat and pulled the pack of Lucky Strikes out, setting it on the table. Everyone looked at it. Not as evidence, as context. She escalated, I said. Then she removed the signal. Which means, Rios started. She wants to see what I do without it, I finished. Voss leaned forward slightly. Then the correct move is restraint. No, I said. That's exactly what she's testing. No, I repeated. That's what you're testing. That held. Because we were back in the same place. Structure versus pressure. System versus instinct. Cindy broke it. We split again, she said. But not like before. Voss didn't respond. He didn't need to. Explain, he said. You maintain your clean view, she said. We break pattern. That compromises coordination. No, she replied. It forces response. I stepped in before it turned into another argument. We don't go wide, I said. We go wrong. That pulled them all back. Wrong how? Cade asked. We move where the system doesn't expect movement, I said. We hit timing gaps that shouldn't matter. Dead zones, Rios said. No, I replied. False priorities. Artemis leaned forward now. Create something that looks important. Yes. So she reacts. No, I said. So the system does. And she shows up, Cindy added. I didn't answer that, because that part wasn't guaranteed. Nothing about this was. Voss straightened slightly. And if she doesn't? Then we confirm she's not reacting anymore, I said. And if she is? I looked at the pack on the table, then back at him. Then she's closer than she should be. Cade nodded once. I'll prep movement. Ryo started pulling alternative routes. Artemis adjusted the overlays to account for deviation instead of alignment. Cindy stepped off to coordinate external cover without flagging official channels. Voss stayed where he was, watching, calculating, not agreeing, not stopping it either. That was enough, because for the first time since the cigarettes hit the ground, we weren't waiting to see what Laura left behind. We were stepping into space she didn't mark, whether that forced her to move or proved she didn't have to, was the only question left. And somewhere inside Meridian's structure, inside the timing, the routes, the control, Nkosi Maseko was either watching it happen or already knew how it ended. I picked the pack up off the table and stepped away before anyone could reframe the plan again. No one stopped me. They knew better than to try and hold something that already moved. The hallway felt narrower on the way out. Same walls, same lighting, different weight. Like the air had already adjusted to what we hadn't said out loud yet. I pushed through the side exit and let the door close behind me without sound. Outside, the city carried on like it didn't owe anyone an explanation. Distant traffic, low voices somewhere down the block, a hum that never stopped long enough to notice unless you were already looking for it. Cindy was already there, leaning against the wall just off the door, arms folded, eyes scanning without turning her head. She didn't look at me when I stepped out. "Thought you'd come out here," she said. I didn't answer right away, just pulled a cigarette from the pack and tapped it once against the edge before placing it between my lips. "You don't smoke," I said. "I don't," she replied. A beat. "Let me get one." That got a look. Not long, just enough to register. I pulled a second from the pack and handed it over. She took it like she knew what she was doing, even if she didn't. I struck the match first, lit mine, then held it steady for her. She leaned in, caught the flame, pulled too fast. Coughed, turned her head away, one hand coming up instinctively as the smoke hit harder than she expected. "Yeah," she said through it. "That's worse than I thought." I let the smoke sit, then pushed it out slow. "They don't make it easy," I said. She took another pull anyway, slower this time, still coughed, but less. "Do they help?" she asked. "Help what?" "Clear things, focus, whatever this is supposed to be." I watched the street instead of her. "No," I said. "They don't do anything." "Then why?" I tapped Ash off to the side. "Because sometimes the act matters more than the result." She looked at me then. "That's not an answer. It's the only one that holds." She took another pull, this one measured, controlled, like she was already adjusting to it. "Feels like I'm doing something wrong," she said. "You are." That almost got a smile. Almost. We stood there for a second without talking, both looking at the same street from different angles. No movement that mattered. No signal waiting to be picked up. Just space. "She stopped," Cindy said. "Yes. That's not like her." "No," I replied. "It's exactly like her. She gets closer, then disappears." "She gets control," I said, then removes the need to show it." Cindy let that sit, then flicked Ash down, watching it fall. "So now what?" she asked. I didn't answer right away, because this part didn't come from the board. It came from instinct, from pressure, from knowing when something wasn't going to reveal itself unless you forced it to. "We stopped looking for her," I said. Cindy glanced over. "That sounds like Voss." "It's not." "Then explain it." I took another pull, slower now, the burn settling into something steady instead of sharp. We've been moving inside her structure, I said. Following what she leaves, reacting to what she sets. Yes. She took that away. So we're blind. No, I said. We're free. She didn't respond to that immediately. Didn't agree either. That's a risk, she said. Yes. And your plan is what? Make noise and hope she shows? No, I said. Make the system respond. Difference. Everything. She nodded slightly, not fully convinced but tracking. Where do we push? She asked. I looked out across the street again, letting the patterns settle in the way they do when you stop forcing them to mean something. Somewhere that doesn't matter, I said. That's vague. That's the point. She took another pull, steadier now. No cough this time. False priority, she said. Yes. Something the system has to acknowledge, even if it shouldn't. Yes. And if she ignores it, then she's not reacting anymore. And if she does, I finally looked at her. Then she's closer than we thought. That held between us. Simple, clean, dangerous. Cindy dropped the cigarette and crushed it under her heel, a little faster than she needed to. I don't like this, she said. You don't have to. I usually do. Not this time. She exhaled once, steadying, then nodded. All right, she said. Then we do it your way. I finished mine, let the last of it burn down just enough to feel it, then dropped it and put it out beside hers. 2 marks on the ground. Nothing that would stay. Nothing that would matter to anyone who wasn't already looking for it. I slid the pack back into my coat. Weight still there, still right. Let's move, I said. This time, we weren't following anything. We were about to give something a reason to follow us. We didn't pick the location because it mattered. We picked it because it didn't. Rios flagged the corridor as low priority. Light traffic, minimal oversight, no recent meridian alignment. Artemis confirmed it wasn't part of any optimized routing path. Cindy cleared it through local channels without triggering anything that would echo back into agency oversight. On paper, it was noise. That made it useful. We moved just before first light. No convoy, no marked presence. Just enough structure to hold together if something went wrong. Not enough to announce we were there if it didn't. Cade took point. I stayed just off him, offset enough to see what he didn't have to look at directly. Cindy ran the rear with Rios, feeding live adjustments through comms. Artemis stayed back, building the picture in real time, stitching whatever we touched into something that might make sense later. Voss didn't come. That was his choice, or his line. Either way, it left us without a net. The site was a mid-block storage yard that didn't store anything worth naming. Chain-link fencing, a locked gate that hadn't been opened in hours, maybe longer, a couple of parked vehicles with enough dust on them to suggest they belonged to someone who wasn't in a hurry to come back. Dead space. Perfect. Cade cut the lock without noise. We moved inside without breaking stride. No resistance, no movement, no reason for anything to happen. That was the point. Rios, I said. Live, she replied. No external shifts, no traffic anomalies, grids clean. Artemis, nothing tying this to Meridian, he said. You're off every mapped path. Good. Cindy moved along the perimeter, eyes on the blind corners, the places where something could sit long enough to matter. Feels wrong, she said. It should, I replied. Cade stopped near the center of the yard and turned once, slow, taking in the angles. Too quiet, he said. No, I said. It's exactly what we picked. He didn't argue, because the quiet wasn't the problem. The absence of reaction was. I stepped further in, boots crunching lightly against gravel that hadn't been disturbed in hours. No fresh tracks, no secondary entry points, no hidden structure waiting to be revealed. Nothing. We stood there long enough to confirm it. then longer than we should have. Still clean, Rios said. That's not enough, Cindy replied. No, I said. It's not. Artemis came back on the line. You want escalation? Yes. That creates visibility. That's the point. Cindy looked over. How loud? Not loud, I said. Wrong. Cade shifted slightly. Define wrong. I scanned the yard one more time, then pointed to a stack of empty crates along the far wall. Move those, I said. He didn't ask why, just moved. Wood scraped against concrete. Not loud, not subtle either. Enough to register if anyone was listening for something out of place. Cindy caught it immediately. You're creating pattern disruption. Yes, on nothing. Exactly. Rios's voice tightened slightly. Still no external response. Wait, I said. Cade repositioned the crates again. Different angle, different alignment. Something that didn't match the rest of the yard. Something that would stand out. If someone was watching consistency. We waited. 5 seconds. 10. Nothing. Artemis spoke first. If Meridian was tied to this. They're not, Cindy cut in. Or they're choosing not to respond, he corrected. I shook my head slightly. No. Cade glanced over. No what? They don't choose not to respond, I said. That's not how a system like this holds control. Then where are they? Cindy asked. I didn't answer, because the answer was already there. It just wasn't where we were standing. Rios, I said. Yeah. Pull external grid again, wider. She didn't hesitate. Stand by. A beat. Then. I've got something. Everything in the yard stopped without anyone saying it. Where? I said. 3 blocks east, she replied. Traffic slowdown. Not flagged. Not logged. Just reduced flow. Cause. No visible obstruction. Artemis picked it up immediately. That's not random. No, I said. It's not. Cindy stepped in closer. They didn't react here. No. They moved somewhere else. Yes. Cade nodded once. So, this wasn't the target. No, I said. This was the question. And they answered it, Artemis said. By shifting pressure, Cindy added. I turned toward the gate. They didn't follow us, I said. They redirected. That means what? Cade asked. It means we're not chasing the system anymore, I replied. Cindy already knew. We're inside it. Yes. Rios's voice came back tighter now. Traffic drop is holding. Still no official flag. Then it's controlled, Artemis said. Yes, I replied. Cade moved first. We go. Now, Cindy added. We didn't wait for confirmation. Didn't wait for Voss. Didn't wait for the system to tell us we were allowed to move. We stepped out of the yard the same way we came in. Quiet. Unseen. But no longer irrelevant. Because 3 blocks east. Something had shifted. And this time, it wasn't us. We took it on foot. No vehicles. No sirens. No reason to announce movement into something that was already adjusting. 3 blocks east wasn't distance. It was transition. The city didn't change all at once. It shifted in layers. Sound dropped first, traffic thinning without stopping, engines idling longer than they should, conversations cutting short instead of carrying through. Then movement. People still walking, but faster, tighter, like they were passing through something they didn't want to be part of. Control without presence. Meridian. Rios, I said. I see it, she replied. Flow reduction holding across 2 adjacent streets. No alerts. No enforcement tags. Artificial, Artemis added. Someone's managing the pace without triggering system flags. Not someone, I said. Something. Cade glanced over. Same thing, Yes. We slowed before the corner, not stopping, just enough to let the angle open without stepping into it blind. Cindy shifted left, taking the far side of the line. Cade held center. I stayed back half a step, watching the reflection in a darkened storefront instead of the street itself. No uniforms, no marked vehicles, no visible perimeter. But the space was wrong. Too clean, too controlled. "They cleared it," Cindy said under her breath. "No," I replied. "They shaped it." Cade leaned just enough to see past the edge. "Vehicle mid-block," he said. "Black sedan. Engine running." "Occupied." "Can't see." Rios came in. No plate read. Camera feed on that block just dropped. "Of course it did," Cindy said. Artemis layered in. "That's not a blind spot. That's a cut." "Timing," I said. "Yes," he replied. "And it lines up exactly with your arrival window." Cade looked back at me. "They knew we'd move." "No," I said. "They knew we'd ask the wrong question." Cindy didn't take her eyes off the corner. "And this is the right one." "No," I said. "This is the answer." I stepped forward. Cade didn't stop me. He adjusted with me. That was the difference. We rounded the corner without breaking stride. The street opened up just enough to confirm it. Black sedan. Mid-block. Driver's side angled slightly toward the curb like it hadn't committed to parking or leaving. Engine running. No driver visible. Rear door. Open. Not wide. Not inviting. Just enough. Cindy moved first this time, crossing slightly ahead, clearing the far side before I closed distance. Cade stayed offset, watching the windows, the rooftops, the places that would matter if this wasn't what it looked like. It was. That was the problem. No rush, no panic. Just placement. I approached the vehicle slow enough to see everything that wasn't moving. Interior clean. No struggle. No sign of forced entry. Just a phone, sitting on the seat. Screen dark. Waiting. "Don't touch it," Rios said immediately. "I know," I replied. Cindy circled once, checking the rear, the trunk line, the undercarriage angles without breaking posture. "Clear," she said. "No secondary." Cade nodded once. "Same." Artemis's voice dropped lower. "That's not a drop. That's a handoff." "No," I said. "It's a message." I reached in. Not for the phone, for the space around it. Checking first. Edges. Weight. Placement. Nothing else there. No wire, no pressure, no secondary trigger, just the phone. I picked it up. Screen lit immediately. No lock, no hesitation. Just one active screen. A message. Not typed, not saved. Lived unknown contact. A single line. No punctuation. No signature, just, "You're close enough now." Cindy stepped in beside me, reading it over my shoulder. "That's not location data," she said. "No." "That's confirmation." "Yes." Cade looked up and down the street again. "Then where is she?" I didn't answer. Because the answer wasn't in the phone. It wasn't in the car. It wasn't in the street. It was in the timing. "She didn't lead us here," I said. Cindy's eyes shifted slightly. "Then what?" "She let us arrive." Artemis caught it first. "That means she's already moved past this." "Yes." Rios came back sharper now. "I'm losing grid stability 2 blocks north." That snapped everything tight. "Define losing," Cindy said. "Signal degradation, not full drop, just enough to distort." "Layered control," Artemis said. "Or staged interference," Cade added. I handed the phone to Cindy. "Hold that," I said. She took it without question. "Where?" she asked. I looked past the car, past the block, past the controlled space that was already starting to collapse behind us. "North," I said. Cade didn't wait. He moved. Cindy followed. I took one last look at the sedan. Engine still running. Door still open. Exactly where it needed to be. Not for us. For the next move. I stepped away from it and didn't look back. Because whatever Laura Vance wanted from that moment, we'd already given it to her. And whatever came next was already in motion. Chatber 16. Case file. Cape Town. SI. May 5th, 2026. North wasn't a direction. It was compression. The grid tightened as we moved, lanes narrowing, buildings stepping closer together, sight lines shortening until everything started to feel like it was happening one block ahead of where you actually were. Rios's feed degraded in layers, not a full drop, not enough to trigger fallback, just enough to blur the edges of what we could rely on. Signal integrity at 60, she said, dropping in pulses. Pattern? Artemis asked. Controlled, she replied. Not environmental. Then it's deliberate, Cindy said. It's always deliberate, I answered. Cade took point through the first choke, clearing the corner without breaking pace. I stayed just off him, tracking reflections in glass and steel instead of the street itself. Cindy held rear, tight enough to close distance, wide enough to see past us if something came from behind. No uniforms, no overt presence. But the city had shifted again. Foot traffic thinned to nothing. Doors closed that didn't need to be closed. A delivery truck idled at the curb with no driver in sight. Control without visibility. Meridian. 2 blocks, Rios said. Interference intensifying. Where's the center? I asked. Not fixed, she replied. It's moving with you. Artemis cut in. That's not a zone. That's a tether. Cade glanced back once. Meaning? They're not controlling the area, Artemis said. They're controlling proximity. I didn't respond, because that was already clear. This wasn't about where we were. It was about how close we were allowed to get. We cleared the next corner. The street opened just enough to give us a line. Mid-block. Service entrance. Steel door set into a concrete facade, with no signage, no markings, no reason for it to matter. Except it did. Because everything else around it had been stripped down to nothing. No pedestrians, no vehicles, no noise, just that door. That's it, Cindy said. No, I replied. That's the next step. Cade moved up along the wall, clearing angles before committing to the approach. I followed, keeping distance tight, eyes tracking the upper windows, the roofline, the places where someone could sit and watch without being seen. Nothing, which meant everything. Rios. Feed's unstable, she said. I've got intermittent visual bleed from adjacent blocks, but nothing clean on your position. Artemis. I've got no registered activity tied to that structure, he replied. On paper, it doesn't exist. Of course it doesn't, Cindy said. I stopped 3 feet from the door. No handle, no keypad, no visible access point. Just steel. Clean. Untouched. This isn't entry, Cade said. No, I replied. It's acknowledgement. Cindy stepped closer. Of what? I didn't answer right away, because the answer was in the pattern, the cigarettes, the phone, the movement north, each step removing something, each step narrowing the path. She's not guiding us anymore, I said. She's measuring us, Artemis replied. Yes. Cade looked at the door. Then what's this measure? I raised my hand and placed it flat against the steel. Cold, solid, real. For a second, nothing. Then, a click. Not loud, not mechanical. Just enough to confirm it wasn't locked. Cade shifted immediately. That wasn't triggered by force. No, I said. It was triggered by presence. Cindy's voice tightened. You sure you want to test that? No, I replied, but we're already inside it. I pushed. The door opened inward without resistance, dark inside. Not empty, just unlit. Rios. I've lost you, she said. Full drop. Artemis. No internal mapping, he replied. You're off grid. Cade looked at me. We go or we don't. I stepped through. That answered it. The air changed immediately. Cooler. Still. Sound didn't carry the same way. It died faster, like the space absorbed it instead of letting it move. Cindy came in behind me. Cade followed, the door closing without either of them touching it. No external light, no ambient noise, just a single overhead strip flickering to life, then another, then another. Sequential, guided, not random. The room revealed itself in layers, concrete floor, bare walls, no furniture, no equipment. Nothing to justify the space existing except the fact that it did. Kill zone, Cade said quietly. No, I replied. Observation. Cindy scanned the perimeter. From where? Everywhere, Artemis said over the comm. Then cut. Signal gone, clean, permanent. Rios didn't come back. Neither did Artemis. Just silence. Cade shifted position, placing himself slightly forward, body angled to cover both me and Cindy without making it obvious. They cut us off, he said. No, I replied. They isolated us. Difference, Cindy said. Control, I answered. The light stopped flickering. Fully on now, stable, and in the center of the room, a chair. Wasn't there before. Now it was, simple, metal, facing us. Nothing else around it, no restraints, no markings, just placement. Cade exhaled once. That wasn't there. I know. Cindy didn't take her eyes off it. This is her. Yes. Then where is she? I looked past the chair, past the room, past the structure that had already removed everything we could rely on. She's here, I said. The words settled just as the sound came. Not from the door, not from above, from behind us. Soft. Controlled. Close enough that it didn't need to be louder. You're late. I didn't turn right away. Didn't need to. I already knew the voice. Laura Vance. And for the first time since this started, she wasn't ahead of me. She was standing in the same room. I didn't turn right away. Not because I didn't recognize the voice. I did. I knew it the second it hit the air. I didn't turn because turning first meant reacting, and that was still hers. Cade shifted half a step, not enough to break position, just enough to account for a new angle. Cindy didn't move at all. She didn't need to. Her line of sight had already adjusted. Define late, I said. Her footsteps were measured. No rush, no hesitation. The sound of someone who didn't need to close distance fast because it was already closed. You had a cleaner path, she said. You chose not to take it. Now I turned. She stood just inside the light spill behind us, far enough back to hold shadow, close enough that I didn't need to search for her. Same posture, same control. Nothing wasted, no weapon visible. That didn't mean anything. Cleaner doesn't mean correct, I said. No, she replied. It means predictable. Cindy's voice came in flat. You shot Peter. Laura didn't look at her. Peter stepped into a correction, she said. That's on him. That's on you, Cindy replied. No, Laura said. That's the difference between your system and mine. Cade's tone stayed level. You want to explain that? She shifted her weight slightly, just enough to change how the light hit her face. Your system reacts to damage, she said. Mine prevents it. I watched her. By creating it first, I said. She didn't deny it. By controlling where it happens, she corrected. Silence sat between us for a second. Not tension. Calibration. You left the cigarettes, I said. Yes. You knew I'd take them. I knew you'd understand them. And the phone. A step. And this, I said, gesturing lightly around the room. Her eyes moved once, taking in the space like it belonged to her without needing to prove it. This is alignment, she said. No, I replied. This is containment. That got the smallest reaction, not visible to anyone who didn't know what to look for. But it was there. Containment assumes you can't leave, she said. I don't need to leave, I replied. I just need to see it. Her eyes held on mine a fraction longer than they had before. That mattered. Cindy stepped in slightly. You've killed 4 people connected to this case. Laura didn't look away from me. Incorrect, she said. I removed 4 points of instability. Elliot Crane wasn't instability, Cindy said. He was already compromised, Laura replied. Smith, Cindy pushed. Noise. Antoine. That one hung. Not longer. Heavier. Laura's expression didn't change. Antoine made a decision, she said. He just didn't understand the cost. Cade's voice cut in. You tortured him. Laura finally looked at him. No, she said. I let him see the system he chose to step into. That's not a system, Cindy said. That's you. Laura's attention shifted back to me. That's what you still don't understand, she said. Then explain it, I replied. She took a step forward. Not aggressive, not defensive, just closer. Meridian isn't a network, she said. It's a structure. We've seen the structure, I said. No, she replied. You've seen the edges. Then show me the center. She stopped just short of the chair. That's not how it works. Then why bring me here? I didn't bring you, she said. I removed everything else. That tracked. Too clean to ignore. You're not hiding anymore, I said. I never was. That's not true. No, she said. That's your perception. Cade shifted again. You're exposed now. Laura didn't even look at him. No, she said. Now, I'm visible. Same thing, Cindy said. Not even close, Laura replied. I stepped forward, closing the distance just enough to put us on equal ground with the chair between us. You left a message with Peter, I said. Her eyes didn't move. Did I? You did. What did it say? I held her there for a second, then, tell Marty he's still behind, I said. And next time I shoot him, he won't survive. Cindy went still. Cade didn't react. Laura almost smiled. Not warmth. Recognition. That wasn't for him, she said. I know. It was for you. Yes. And you're still here. I didn't respond, because that was the point. She nodded once, like something had just been confirmed. Good, she said. Cindy stepped in again. You're not walking out of here clean. Laura looked at her like the statement didn't apply. I already did, she said. That shifted the room. Not physically, structurally. Cade picked up on it first. She's not contained. No, I said. Laura's eyes stayed on mine. You're starting to see it, she said. See what? That this doesn't stop with me. I already know that. No, she replied. You're just saying it. I glanced at the chair once, then back to her. Nkosi Maseko, I said. That landed. Not visibly, but it landed. Laura didn't move, didn't blink, didn't correct. Say it again, she said. Nkosi Maseko. Silence. Then, "You're closer than you were," she said. "That's not an answer. It's the only one you get right now." Cade stepped forward half a pace. "Then give us the next one." Laura looked past him, through him, then back to me. "You're still thinking in pieces," she said. "Ports, containers, people. That's what you've given us." "No," she replied. "That's what you've chosen to follow." "Then what should we be following?" She held that for a second. Then, "Timing." The word didn't echo. It settled, like it belonged there. "Everything moves on timing," she continued. "Not routes, not ownership, not even control." "Then what controls timing?" Cindy asked. Laura didn't look at her. "Access," she said. I nodded once. "Meridian?" "No," she replied. "Meridian enforces it." That was the first real crack. Small, precise, but real. "Then who sets it?" I said. Laura took a step back, just enough to reintroduce distance. "You're asking the right question," she said. "That's not an answer. It's progress." Cindy exhaled sharply. "We're done with this." Laura ignored her. "You wanted to catch up," she said to me. I did. "You're not behind anymore." That didn't feel like a win. It felt like a warning. "Then what am I?" I asked. She held my eyes. "Inside." The lights flickered once, just once, and when they stabilized, she was already moving, not running, not retreating, just stepping back into the structure that had been built around her from the start. Cade moved to intercept. Nothing there. No door opening. No sound. Just space where she had been. Gone. Cindy turned, scanning every angle. "That's not possible." "Yes, it is," I said. "Because now, we understood the rule. You don't catch something that doesn't move the way you expect. You step into where it already is, and for the first time, we weren't outside the system anymore. We were standing inside it. No one moved right away. That was the first correction. Not chasing what just disappeared, not reacting to space that was designed to absorb it. Cade held position. Cindy stayed locked on the last place Laura had been, like she could force the structure to give her something it didn't want to show. I stood where I was, letting the room settle back into what it actually was without her inside it. Concrete, light, air, nothing else. "That's not an exit," Cindy said. "No," I replied. "It's a transition." "To where?" Cade asked. "Not here," I said. That was enough for now. "Rios," Cindy tried. Nothing. "Artemis." Silence. "They cut us clean," Cade said. "No," I replied. "They cut the noise." Cindy looked at me. "You call that noise?" "I call anything we rely on noise once we're inside their structure. That's convenient. It's accurate." That didn't help her. Didn't need to. We weren't here to feel right. We were here to understand what just happened. I stepped forward and moved past the chair. No reaction, no trigger, no shift in light. Just empty space. "She wanted us here," Cindy said. "Yes." "Why?" I stopped at the far wall, ran my hand along it. Smooth, sealed. No seams, no access points. Nothing that suggested this room connected to anything else, which meant it did. "Because this is the first place we couldn't rely on anything else," I said. "That's not leverage," Cade replied. "That's isolation. It's both." Cindy exhaled slowly. "She walked out of a sealed room." "No," I said. "She walked into a system we don't control." "That's the same thing right now." "No," I replied. "It just feels like it." Cade shifted, checking the door. Still there, still closed. He pulled it open. Light from outside cut in hard against the controlled environment inside. Sound followed. City noise. Movement. Normal. Door's clear, he said. I didn't move toward it. Not yet. Because leaving too fast meant we missed what the room was actually for. She gave you something, Cindy said. Yes. And you're not saying what. I am, I replied. You're just not hearing it yet. That's helpful. It's not supposed to be. She held that for a second, then looked back at the chair. That thing wasn't there when we walked in, she said. No. So what is it? I turned back toward it. Centered, placed, facing us. Not a trap, not a restraint. A position. Perspective, I said. Cade frowned slightly. Explain. She didn't bring us here to control us, I said. She brought us here to show us how little control we actually have. That's not new, Cindy said. No, I replied. But this is the first time we've seen it without interference. That landed. Because for the first time since we stepped into South Africa, there were no feeds, no overlays, no support, no system telling us what we were looking at, just reality. She cut everything, Cindy said. Yes. So we'd rely on what? I looked at her. Judgment. Cade nodded once. And if that's wrong, it costs us, I said. Cindy didn't like that answer. Didn't argue it either. I stepped back toward the door, not rushing, not lingering, just moving when the room had given everything it was going to give. Cade held it open. Cindy stepped through first this time. I followed. The air outside felt different. Not safer, just louder. Rios came back immediately. Signal reacquired. Where the hell did you go? Inside, Cindy said. That wasn't on any grid. I know, I replied. Artemis layered in a second later. I lost you completely. No trace, no echo, nothing. That's the point, I said. What point? He asked. That Meridian doesn't need to hide, I replied. It just needs to decide what exists. Silence on the line. Then, that's not a system, Rios said. No, I replied. It's control. Cade stepped out behind me, letting the door close on its own. We all turned back to it. Still there, same as before, plain, unmarked, like it had never mattered. Cindy shook her head slightly. You think she's still in there? No. You sure? Yes. Then where did she go? I looked down the street. Traffic was back, people moving again, noise filling in the gaps like nothing had ever been pulled out of it. She didn't go anywhere, I said. Cindy frowned. That doesn't make sense. It does if you stop thinking about location, I replied. Cade picked up on it first. Timing? Yes. Artemis came back in. You think she's already ahead of whatever this was supposed to lead into. I know she is, I said. Rios pulled something up fast. I've got a spike. Where? Cindy asked. Not port, not corridor, she said. Financial. That shifted everything. Define spike, I said. Rapid transaction clustering, she replied. Multiple shell accounts, same timestamp. Meridian, Artemis said. No, I replied. Above Meridian. Silence again. Because that was the next layer, the one Laura didn't give us, but pointed us toward. Where's the origin? Cade asked. Rios hesitated. That's the problem, she said. There isn't one. There's always an origin, Cindy said. Not here, Rios replied. It's distributed. Artemis's voice dropped. That's not distribution. That's synchronization. I nodded once. Timing, I said. Cindy looked at me. You think this is Masako? Yes. And Laura. She's enforcement, I said. He's structure. Cade exhaled slowly. Then we're not chasing a person anymore. No, I replied. We're chasing control. I looked back at the door one last time, then away. "Not chasing," I said. "Then what?" I stepped forward into the street. Disrupting. Because now, we weren't trying to catch Laura Vance. We were trying to break the system she moved inside, and somewhere above all of it. Nkosi Maseko was already deciding whether we mattered enough to stop. I pulled a Lucky from the pack. Cindy saw it and gave a small nod. I don't know why that landed the way it did, but it did. Something about the timing, the quiet after the room, the fact that for once we weren't being pulled. We were standing. I smiled. Not forced, not calculated. Real. First time in months. I pulled a second cigarette and handed it to her. She took it without comment. I struck the match, lit mine first, then held it steady for her. She leaned in, caught the flame, pulled too fast. Coughed, turned her head, one hand coming up as the smoke hit her harder than expected. I inhaled smooth, controlled. Let it sit before pushing it out slow. "You're getting there," I said. She shot me a look through the cough. "I hate this." "Good. That's not encouraging. It's not supposed to be." She tried again, slower this time. Still rough, but she held it longer before the next cough hit. We stood just off the curb, the door behind us already blending back into the block, like it had nothing to do with anything. Rios's voice was still live in my ear, walking through transaction clusters, timestamps, cross-referencing shell accounts that didn't exist long enough to matter individually, but meant something together. Artemis was already ahead of it, building structure out of noise. Cade watched the street. I watched the timing. "She shifted us," Cindy said. "Yes. Not physically. No. Structurally." I glanced at her. "You're getting there," I said again. She didn't respond to that. Just took another pull, steadier now, less reaction. "Financial spike," she said. "You think that's the move?" "No," I replied. "That's the effect." "Then what's the move?" I flicked Ash to the side. "Synchronization." Artemis picked that up immediately. "That's what I'm seeing. It's not movement, it's alignment. Multiple endpoints, same timestamp, no central trigger." "There's always a trigger," Cindy said. "Yes," I replied. "We're just not looking at it yet." Rios cut in. "I'm tracing back entry points. These accounts don't originate from port activity. They're upstream." "Define upstream," Cade said. "Corporate shells," she replied. "Consulting layers. Advisory groups." "Meridian," Cindy said. "No," I replied. "Above it." That held. Because that was the shift Laura forced. Stop looking at movement. Start looking at timing. "She gave you that," Cindy said. "Yes." "And you trust it?" "No." "Then why follow it?" I looked at the cigarette between my fingers. Watched the burn line move exactly where it was supposed to. Because that's what it does. Every time, controlled, predictable, until something interrupts it. "Because it's not a direction," I said. "It's a rule." She nodded slowly, then took another pull. No cough this time. "All right," she said. "Then what breaks it?" I dropped the cigarette, crushed it under my heel. "Disruption doesn't work at the edge," I said. "It gets absorbed." "Then where?" Cade asked. I looked up the street. People moving again, traffic back, everything filling in like nothing had ever been removed. "At the moment it aligns," I said. Artemis came in sharper now. "If we hit the timing window before it resolves—" "You don't break the system," Cindy said. "You expose it," I finished. Rios's tone shifted. "I've got a projected next cluster, 8 minutes out." "Location," Cade said. She pushed it through. 2 blocks north. Not the same corridor. Parallel. Offset. "Of course," Cindy said. They don't repeat the same path. They repeat the same timing, I corrected. Cade stepped off the curb. We move. Cindy dropped her cigarette beside mine, crushed it clean. I still hate those, she said. You're still using it, I replied. That doesn't mean I like it. It means it works. She shook her head once, then fell into step beside me. Rios counted it down in the background. Artemis refined the window. Cade pushed pace just enough to close distance without drawing attention. I didn't rush, didn't slow, just moved where the timing said we needed to be. Because now, we weren't chasing Laura Vance. We weren't chasing Meridian. We were stepping into the one place the system couldn't hide. The moment everything had to happen at once. And this time, we were going to be there first. We didn't hit it. We arrived inside it. That was the difference. 2 blocks north. Parallel corridor. Same compression in the air, but tighter this time. Less bleed. More control. The kind of space that doesn't look important until you realize everything that matters is moving through it at the same time. 30 seconds, Rios said. Cade slowed just enough to keep us from breaking into it too early. Cindy adjusted right, taking the opposite angle. I held center, watching reflections again. Windows, mirrors, polished metal on parked cars. Anything that would show movement before it showed itself. No vehicles stopping, no doors opening, no visible exchange. That's not a drop, Cindy said. No, I replied. It's a convergence. Artemis came in low. I'm seeing it. Transaction clustering just spiked again. Same timestamp alignment. You're on top of it. Where? Cade asked. Everywhere, Artemis said. That's the point. I stepped forward, not fast, not slow, just enough to be present when the moment hit. And it did. You don't hear it. You don't see it. You feel it. A shift in the rhythm of the street. Conversations pause half a second too long. A car idles where it should have moved. A door closes without anyone visible near it. Alignment. Now, Rios said. I stopped. Not in the middle of the street, not on the edge. Right where it didn't matter. Unless you understood what you were standing in. This is it, Cindy said quietly. Yes. Cade scanned once, tighter now. What are we looking for? Nothing, I said. That's not helpful. It's exact. Because there was nothing to see. That was the design. Everything moved through the system without presenting itself as movement. But the timing couldn't hide. I looked at my watch. 3:30 a.m. It hit clean. No drift. No delay. Right on the mark. Rios's voice sharpened. Cluster just resolved. Artemis followed immediately. Funds dispersed. Accounts closed. It's gone. No, I said. It completed. Cindy exhaled slowly. We stood inside it. Yes. And they didn't move us. No. Cade looked around again. Then what did we just do? I didn't answer right away. Because this wasn't disruption. Not yet. This was something else. We saw it, I said. That's it, Cindy asked. That's the first time, I replied. Silence held for a second. Then Rios came back, quieter now. I've got residual traces, not enough to track, just confirmation. Of what? Artemis asked. That it's real, she said. Cade shook his head slightly. We already knew that. No, I replied. We suspected it. Cindy looked at me. And now we can measure it. That landed. Because that was the shift Laura forced. Not chasing movement. Measuring timing. I checked my watch again. Still 3:30. Still clean. Still exact. Small victory. Not loud. Not decisive. But real. We weren't outside it anymore. We weren't guessing. for the first time since this started. We stood in the system while it worked, and it didn't break. It didn't react. It didn't even acknowledge us. That told me everything I needed to know. Cindy stepped closer. So what's next? I looked up from the watch, at the street, at the people already moving again like nothing had happened. At least now, I said, we know where to stand. Cade nodded once. Rios started rebuilding the trace. Artemis began mapping the next projected window, and for a brief second, 3:30 a.m. held. Quiet, controlled, earned. Before the system moved again. And we had to be ready to move with it. We didn't celebrate it. We acknowledged it. That was enough. Back at the safe house, the room felt different. Not lighter. Not safer. Just aligned. The boards were still up, screens still running. Rios already rebuilding the trace from what little we pulled out of the window. Artemis was mapping forward, not backward for the first time since we landed. Cade stood near the wall, arms loose, posture steady, watching everything without needing to be part of it. No one said, "Good job." No one needed to. We stood in it, Cindy said, setting her gear down without looking at anyone in particular. Rios nodded from her station. And it didn't collapse. It wasn't supposed to, Artemis added. That's the point. It's stable. That's not comforting, Cindy replied. It's not meant to be, I said. Cade glanced over. So what did we actually get? Timing confirmation, I said. Structure validation. Entry point. That's not small, Artemis said. No, I replied. But it's not a win yet either. Cindy looked at me. It's the first one we've had. I didn't argue that, because she wasn't wrong. Rios leaned back slightly. Next window projection is building. If the pattern holds, it will, I said. Artemis nodded. Then we can start getting ahead of it instead of stepping into it. Careful, Cade said. That's how you think you've got control. We don't, I replied. We just understand it better. Silence settled again. Not heavy, not tense. Just level. Cindy pushed off the table. I need air. No one stopped her. I waited a few seconds, then followed. Outside, the city had settled into that early hour quiet. Not empty. Not asleep. Just slower. Like everything was taking a breath before starting again. Cindy stood near the wall, same place as before, different posture, less edge, more thought. I pulled the pack out, tapped one loose, then another. She didn't ask this time, just took it. I lit mine first, then hers. She pulled slower now. No cough. You're getting better, I said. Don't say that like it's a skill I want, she replied. It's not about wanting it. It never is with you, is it? No. She exhaled, watching the smoke drift out into the streetlight. That was real, she said. Yes. We were inside it. Yes. And she let us be. I didn't respond right away, because that part mattered. She didn't stop us, I said. That's different. Cindy glanced over. You still think she's ahead. I know she is. And that doesn't bother you. It does. Doesn't sound like it. I took another pull. It means we're finally close enough for it to matter, I said. She studied me for a second, then nodded once. Yeah, she said. It does feel like that. We stood there a little longer than we needed to. Not talking, not moving, just present. She dropped her cigarette first, crushed it under her heel. I followed a second later. Neither of us stepped away. Not yet. Cindy looked at me. Not like she was analyzing. Not like she was questioning. Just looking. You smiled earlier, she said. I know. Haven't seen that before. Neither have I. That got a small shift in her expression. Not quite a smile. Close. "You're different here," she said. "So are you." Yeah, that held. Closer now. No tension. No hesitation. Just a line neither of us pretended wasn't there anymore. She closed the distance first. Not fast. Not uncertain. Just enough. I met her halfway. The kiss wasn't rushed. Wasn't complicated. Just real. No strategy. No system. No control. For once. When we pulled back, neither of us stepped away. Not immediately. "You overthink everything," she said quietly. "Not this." Good. That was enough. We went back inside without saying anything else. The team didn't look up, didn't need to. The work was still there. The system was still moving. Nothing had changed. Except us. Later, the safe house went quiet. Not empty. Just settled. Screens dimmed. Voices gone. Movement reduced to nothing that mattered. The city outside kept going. It always did. Inside, we didn't. For one night, we stepped out of it. No timing, no structure, no system to read or break, just stillness. And something that didn't need to be defined to be real. By morning, everything would move again. But for now, we didn't. Morning didn't reset anything. It just removed the quiet. I was up before the light settled fully across the floor. No alarm, no need for one. Once you start tracking timing the way we had, your body doesn't wait to be told when to move. Cindy was still asleep. Not deep. Not unaware. Just still enough to count as it. I watched it for a second longer than I should have. Then I moved. Quiet. Controlled. Same as everything else. Back in the main room, the screens were already live. Rios hadn't left her station. Artemis had rebuilt half the board overnight. Cade stood near the window, same position as always, watching the outside like it might finally give him something it hadn't yet. "You're up," Rios said without looking. "I never stopped," I replied. "That tracks." Artemis shifted a set of overlays into alignment. "We've got 3 projected windows today." "Confirmed or modeled?" I asked. "Modeled," he said, "but tighter now. Margin of error's shrinking." "Based on last night," Rios added. "You standing inside it gave us a clean timing reference." "Not clean," I said. "Accurate." Cade glanced over. "Difference." "Clean assumes no interference," I replied. "Accurate accounts for it." He nodded once. "That means it's usable," he said. "Yes." Cindy stepped in a second later. Same clothes, same posture. No mention of anything outside. That was the rule. "What's the board?" she asked. 3 windows, Artemis said. "First one in 40 minutes. "Location." "Financial again," Rios replied, "but not the same cluster pattern. This one's fragmented." "That's new," Cindy said. "No," I replied. "That's adjustment." "To us?" she asked. "Yes." Artemis leaned back slightly. "So they're compensating." "No," I said. "They're refining." "Meaning we didn't disrupt anything," Cade said. "No," I replied. "We made ourselves visible." Cindy crossed her arms. "And now they're measuring that." "Yes." Silence. Not uncertainty. Acceptance. Rios pulled up the new pattern. Instead of a single convergence, this one splits across 3 micro windows. Same total duration. Same net movement. Just distributed. "Harder to stand inside," Artemis said. "That's the point," Cindy replied. I stepped closer to the board. 3 timestamps. Offset, tight. But not overlapping. "They didn't remove the timing," I said. "They segmented it." "Which means what?" Cade asked. "It means they don't want us seeing it whole again." Cindy looked at me. "Then we don't stand in one." I nodded. We take all three. Rios glanced up. That's not possible. It is if we stop thinking of it as location, I said. Artemis caught it first. We assign positions based on timing, not geography. Yes. That spreads us thin, Cade said. No, I replied. It aligns us. Cindy stepped in beside me. We don't chase the window. We become it, I finished. That held. Because that was the shift. Not following. Not reacting. Matching. Rios adjusted the board. I can route each of you to a micro window with a 5-second margin. That's enough, I said. It's not forgiving, she replied. It doesn't need to be. Cade looked between us. Who takes what? I pointed. First window, Cade, he nodded. Second, Cindy. She didn't hesitate. Third, me. Artemis leaned forward. I'll track all three and call deviations. Do it, I said. Rios started feeding routes. Cade checked his watch. Cindy didn't move. Just stood there for a second. Then, you think she's watching this, she said. Yes. And she knows we'll split. Yes. Then why let it happen? I looked at the board, at the timing, at the structure we were finally starting to see for what it was. Because she wants to see if we can hold it, I said. Cade exhaled once. And if we can't? Then we were never inside it, I replied. That was enough. We moved. No extra words, no hesitation, just alignment. Because this time, we weren't stepping into a system already in motion. We were stepping into it at the exact moment it needed to exist. And if we held it, even for a second, that was the first real break we'd get. Not in Laura, not in Meridian, in the structure above both. And Kosi Maseko, and whatever came after him. 10 minutes, Rios said. I checked my watch. 3:20 a.m. Not yet, but close enough to matter. We didn't rush. We didn't slow. We matched it. Because now, timing wasn't something we followed. It was something we controlled. Or something that controlled us. We didn't move together. That was the point. Cade broke first. North line, steady pace, no deviation. Cindy peeled west without looking back. I held center 2 seconds longer than either of them, then cut east and down, taking the third line exactly where Rios said it would exist, and nowhere else. No vehicles, no noise that didn't belong, just timing. 5 minutes, Rios said. Artemis layered in. Micro window 1 is forming. Cade, you're early by 2. Correcting, Cade replied. I adjusted half a step slower. Not distance. Pace. That's where it lives. Cindy's voice came in low. Second window stable. No visible movement. Don't look for it, I said. I'm not. Good. The city narrowed again around me. Glass, steel, shadow. Reflections carried more truth than anything in front of me. A storefront window showed a man checking his watch across the street. A car idled with no driver in sight. A door opened and closed without a body attached to the motion. Pieces. Not people. 2 minutes, Rios said. Artemis. Cade, you're on the edge. I see it, he said. Cindy, hold, Artemis added. I'm holding. I checked my watch. 3:29. Not yet, but close enough to feel. 30 seconds, Rios said. Everything slowed. Not physically, structurally. Conversations clipped shorter than they should. Footsteps paused between beats. Engines idled one breath longer than normal. Alignment building. 10, Artemis said. Cade went quiet. Cindy went still. I stepped forward. 1 pace, then stopped. 3:30. It hit across all 3 lines. You don't see it. You don't hear it. You feel the moment everything resolves at once. Now, Rios said. Cade, first window complete. Cindy, second, hold. Artemis cut in. Third is live. Keller, you're inside it. I didn't move, didn't reach, didn't react. I stood where the system needed me to be when it closed, and for a fraction, it held. Then, it slipped. Break, Artemis said. Second window collapsed, Cindy added. First is clean, Cade confirmed. Rios's tone tightened. I've got partial traces, only partial. Third window didn't resolve clean. Of course it didn't, I said. Why? Cindy asked. Because they changed it. Cade came back in. First window still tracks baseline. Second destabilized, Artemis said. Third, Rios hesitated. Third is overlapping. That pulled everything tight. Define overlapping, I said. 2 signals, she replied. Same timestamp, same structure, different origin points. That's not segmentation, Artemis said. No, I replied. That's duplication. Cindy's voice sharpened. They're running parallel timing. To see which one we commit to, Cade added. I didn't answer, because I already knew. Where? I said. Rios pushed both points through. One was where I stood, the other. 1 block south. Not on the board, not predicted, not real. Until now. Artemis swore under his breath. That wasn't there. It is now, I said. Cindy didn't hesitate. Which one's correct? Both, I replied. That's not possible. It is if they don't care which one we follow. Cade exhaled once. Then this isn't about the window. No, I said. It's about the decision. Rios came back fast. Second origin is stabilizing. Keller, you're on the wrong one. No, I replied. Data says otherwise. Data's late. Artemis cut in. She's right. The second origin is consolidating. If there's a real transfer. There isn't, I said. Silence. Sharp, immediate. Cindy, then what is it? I stepped back. Just 1 pace, out of the alignment. And the moment. Collapsed. Clean. Gone. Test, I said. Cade caught it. They wanted to see if we'd commit. Yes. To what? To the system, I replied. Cindy's tone dropped. And we didn't. No, I said. We stepped out of it. Rios's feed stabilized. Both signals just dropped. Artemis followed. No residual trace, nothing to map. Cade let out a breath. So we get nothing. No, I said. We get everything. Cindy turned toward my line. Explain. I checked my watch again. 3:31. 1 minute passed. The system had already moved on. They're testing decision-making under alignment, I said. Not tracking movement. That's not logistics, Artemis said. No, I replied. That's control. Cade nodded slowly. And we just refused to play. Yes. Cindy stepped closer. So what does that give us? I looked back at where the second signal had appeared, then vanished. Permission, I said. From who? She asked. I didn't answer right away, because the name mattered now, more than it had before. Nkosi Masako, I said. Silence. Then, Rios, quieter than before. You think he's watching this? I know he is. And Laura, she's not testing us anymore, I said. She's confirming us. Cade looked out across the street. Then what's next? I didn't look at the board, didn't look at the routes, didn't look at anything that had defined how we moved before. Now, I said, we stopped stepping into it. Cindy frowned. Then what? I turned toward them. We make it step into us. That held, because that was the next escalation. Not timing, not alignment, force, and somewhere above all of it, the system had just decided we were worth measuring, which meant we were finally worth breaking. 4 days changed how we moved inside it. The system didn't shift. The structure didn't loosen. Only our approach altered, and even that was subtle enough that no one outside the work would have recognized it. We stopped chasing windows and stopped reacting to placement. We began forcing decisions instead of waiting for them to present themselves. It created pressure in places the system wasn't designed to show. Laura Vance responded the only way someone like her could. She didn't disappear. She tightened, her movements shortened, her exposure narrowed, and the gaps she operated in became smaller and more precise. That kind of contraction only happens when someone feels proximity. Not danger, not fear. Proximity. That was the mistake. I didn't inform the team when I stepped off, saying it would have turned it into a plan, and plans inside this structure were liabilities. Rios would have tracked it, Artemis would have modeled it, and Cade would have shut it down before it ever reached the point it needed to reach. Cindy would have understood it, which made it worse. Understanding creates alignment, and alignment is something Laura knew how to manipulate. So I left without saying anything. The pattern wasn't in the windows anymore. It was in the imperfections between them, in the places where timing didn't resolve cleanly, and the system allowed drift. That's where she had moved. Not inside Meridian's architecture, but along its edges, using it without being bound to it. It was the first time she had stepped partially outside the system instead of fully operating within it. That's where I went. The location wasn't part of the port, and it wasn't residential. It sat in the transition between the two, a strip of industrial space that existed without purpose, unless someone gave it one. Concrete barriers, aging steel, and a failing overhead light that flickered inconsistently enough to break visual rhythm. There were no cameras positioned for coverage, only for compliance, and no traffic that lingered long enough to matter. She was already there. Standing just outside the reach of the light, angled in a way that let her see movement without fully giving herself to it. It wasn't concealment. It was control. "You broke pattern," she said. I stopped roughly 10 feet from her, far enough to keep space, close enough that distance wouldn't become an advantage for either of us. Only one that mattered. Her gaze moved once across me, not searching for a weapon or a stance, but measuring timing, cadence, and intent. That had always been her edge. "That's new," she said. "No, you just didn't account for it." "That's not true." "Then why are you here?" There was a pause, but it wasn't hesitation. It was recalibration, a shift in expectation rather than uncertainty. "I wanted to see it." "See what?" "If you could step outside it." I didn't answer, and she didn't need me to. She nodded once, a small acknowledgement that carried more weight than anything spoken. "Good." The word landed the same way it always had, recognition, confirmation. But without the system behind it, it felt smaller, more human, and more dangerous. "You're alone," she said. "Yes." "That's not like you." "No," I replied. "It's like you." Something in her expression changed, not visibly enough for anyone else to register, but enough for me to know it landed where it needed to. Her right hand moved first. It wasn't fast, and it wasn't telegraphed. It was simply decisive. The .38 came up in a clean line, the same motion I had seen before, the same one that had ended other people and nearly ended me. She fired without hesitation. I was already moving, not retreating, but stepping off her center line, shifting angle instead of distance. The shot cracked past where I had been, close enough to feel, but never close enough to matter. I didn't return fire, Not yet. I closed the space instead. 5 feet became 3, and her adjustment was immediate. She didn't panic or rush. She corrected. The second shot came faster, tighter, aimed for where I was moving rather than where I had been. I caught her wrist as the trigger broke, not with force, but with timing. The round discharged offline, the sound sharp but misaligned, and her grip shifted just enough to matter. I stepped into her, driving through her center of balance. Her back hit the concrete with a controlled impact, her body absorbing it without losing structure. The gun stayed in her hand for a fraction longer than it should have before I stripped it clean, rotating it free and bringing it up in one motion. Her weapon was now mine. She didn't reach for it. She didn't scramble or try to recover position. She stayed where she was, looking up at me with the same measured certainty she had always carried. "You're still behind," she said. I leveled the .38 at her, steady, controlled, and without hesitation. "Not this time." She studied me for a moment, not the weapon, but the timing behind it. "You learned." "Yes. Too late." "No. Right on time." Her gaze didn't break, and for a moment there was nothing between us but decision. No system, no structure, no external pressure. Just alignment between two people who understood exactly what the other was capable of. Her left hand moved then, slower than the first motion, but just as deliberate. A blade came free from where it had been concealed along her side, compact and efficient, designed for close work. She didn't rush it. She waited for the moment my focus would shift, for the fraction where control could be broken and re-established in her favor. She moved with it, not upward, not wide, but direct and precise toward center mass, closing the last inches of distance that mattered. I saw it as it happened, not the blade itself. The timing, I stepped inside it. The gun didn't waver. Her movement was clean, controlled, and exactly what it needed to be. It just wasn't enough. "You don't stop this," she said, even as the motion completed. "I'm not trying to," I replied. That was the truth. The shot came between movements, not as a reaction but as a conclusion. One round, controlled and placed without excess. The sound didn't echo in the space. It ended it. Her body lost structure where it needed to and nowhere else. The blade never reached its mark. The control she held a second earlier disappeared without resistance, and she dropped where she was, the system she operated within no longer extending through her. I held position for a moment longer, not out of hesitation, but out of confirmation. No secondary movement, no adjustment, no correction. Nothing came to replace her. That was the first indication that she had never been the system. Rios's voice reached me first over comms, tight and immediate. "Keller, what did you do?" I didn't answer. Artemis came in behind her, asking about signal loss and position, while Cade remained silent, already processing what the absence meant. Cindy's voice cut through the rest, direct and controlled. "Where are you?" I gave the location without delay. There was no reason not to. This part of it was no longer inside the system we had been working against. By the time they arrived, the scene hadn't changed. The environment held exactly as it had been, and Laura Vance remained where she fell. Cindy looked at me before she looked at the body. "You went alone," she said. "Yes." "You broke formation." "Yes." A brief pause followed, not long enough to challenge, just long enough to acknowledge. "You ended it." I didn't respond. The answer was already there. Cade cleared the perimeter, Artemis stayed quiet, and Rios didn't press further. Cindy stepped past me and looked down at Laura, then back at the weapon in my hand. "38, she said. "Yes." She nodded once, her expression unchanged. "Poetic." "No," I said. "Necessary." That was the difference. I handed her the weapon. She took it without comment. her attention already shifting past the immediate outcome. "Nkosi?" she asked. I looked beyond the scene, past the structures we had been working through and the one we hadn't reached yet. "He's still there." Cindy gave a small nod. "Then this isn't over." "No," I said. "It just got simpler." Because Laura Vance had never been the system. She had been enforcement, and enforcement can always be replaced. Outro. Case file. Cape Town, South Africa. The paperwork didn't take as long as it should have. It never does when the outcome is already decided. Local authorities handled the surface version of it. An isolated incident. Contained. No broader implication. The kind of report that closes clean because it was written to close clean. The kind that doesn't ask questions it isn't prepared to answer. The rest moved through channels that don't leave records anyone can pull. Rios packaged what needed to be packaged. Artemis stripped what didn't need to exist. Cade confirmed what would never be said out loud. Cindy handled the part that still had to look real. And me, I stayed out of it. There's a point where involvement becomes noise. After that, the cleanest thing you can do is step back and let the system file its own version of the truth. Laura Vance was logged as a result, not a cause. That was accurate enough for the people who needed it to be. It wasn't accurate for me. But accuracy isn't what closes cases. Structure does. And this one. Closed. The airport sat quiet in the early light. The kind of quiet that only exists before a place decides to wake up. No crowds, no noise, just movement where movement needed to happen, and nowhere else. The Gulfstream waited on the tarmac, engines off, door open, ready without announcing it. Clean, efficient, final. I stood a few yards out from it, not in a rush to board. The air carried that early morning weight. Cool enough to feel, warm enough to know the day was already building behind it. May. It didn't feel like April anymore. April pushed. April pressed. April made you react. May waited. Not passive, not quiet, just patient. Like it already knew what came next. I reached into my coat and pulled the pack out without thinking about it. Lucky strike. The edges were softer now, not worn, just handled enough to belong where it was. I tapped one free and rolled it between my fingers for a second, before placing it between my lips. The match struck on the second pull, flame catching steady. Nothing rushed about it. The first inhale settled different this time. Not sharp, not unfamiliar, just there. Cindy stepped up beside me without announcing it. She didn't look at me right away. She looked out at the runway, at the empty stretch ahead of us, at the distance we were about to put behind us. "Thought you quit," she said. "I did." She nodded once, like that answer made enough sense not to question further. I pulled another cigarette from the pack and held it out toward her. She looked at it, then at me, then took it. "Do these help?" she asked, turning it slightly between her fingers. "Or do they just make you think they do?" "Depends," I said. "You looking to clear your head or slow it down?" She gave a small breath that almost passed for a laugh. I don't think mine does either right now. I struck another match and held it between us. She leaned in just enough to catch the flame, then pulled back, taking a careful inhale that turned into a cough before she could control it. I watched her ride it out. "You'll get there," I said. She shook her head slightly, recovering, then looked at the cigarette again, like it had personally offended her. "Yeah," she said. "I don't think so." She took one more short pull, tested it, then made a decision. The cigarette dropped from her hand, hit the pavement, and she stepped on it clean, grinding it out without hesitation. "Bad habit," she said. I let the smoke sit for a second before pushing it out slow. "Good," I replied. They are. She looked at me then. Really looked. Not at the case. Not at what we just closed. At me. There was something lighter there than there had been in a while. Not gone, not fixed. Just less weight. Come on, she said, nodding toward the plane. I took one last pull, dropped the cigarette, and put it out with the side of my shoe. We walked the rest of the distance without saying anything else. Didn't need to. At the base of the stairs, I paused just long enough to look back once. Not at the city, not at the case, at the distance. At everything May was already holding out in front of us. Then I turned and stepped inside. Cindy followed. The door closed behind us. And whatever came next. June was already waiting. Case file.